The Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Here's my question, right? There's 6 one-loss teams in the country, right? Okay. We lost to the second-ranked team on the road. Penn State lost to the 4th-ranked team at home. Texas lost to the 5th-ranked team at home. Boise lost to the 7th-ranked team. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois.
I didn't know much about him. I took a minute and Googled him and looked at some of the things he's done in the past at his other places. I mean, he's won everywhere he's been, so he's done a great job, and we expect a great opponent.
I think it's a great game for the state in general. For Indiana and Notre Dame to be playing in the college football playoff. You know, this is the playoffs. You win or go home, you know, and we're in it to win it.
Woo! Y'all gonna make me lose my mind. Up in here, up in here. Y'all gonna make me go all out.
What a way to start a Monday. I was just talking with Scotty in the break room, and I thought to myself, when is the last time the state has had a sporting event like we will get a week from Friday? Andy, you came from a market where in Kentucky, Louisville,
oh yeah,
you guys got it, right? At some point,
yeah,
there?
Well, they would play.
But in the tournament, right?
Final Four NCAA tournament, yeah. Oh yeah, when Kentucky won the national title in 2012, they played Louisville in the Final Four.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Of.
Oh yeah.
You know, I guess obviously Indiana Purdue could meet at some point in the NCAA tournament, but like I find it hard to drum up a sporting event like we will get a week from Friday, in the sense of the magnitude of it is the first ever playoff game in this new format. I don't want to act like Notre Dame and Indiana's football fandom or rivalry is anything like Louisville, Kentucky. That would be probably the most naive comment I've ever made. But, yeah, Catholics versus cigarettes a week from Friday in South Bend.
I like it. Now, are you going to go? You know, I went right to StubHub to look at the ticket prices after we did the entire fiasco. They're $9 tickets to get into the Big Ten championship game. Yeah, you need about $1,400, big boy, if you're making it.
They make Taylor Swift's tickets look cheap.
Man, they really do. Jim Irsay needs to give away some IU football tickets. You know, the best thing about it is, and Mark, I know you're going to love this. Good job on the open, and a good morning to you fellas. The best part is Indiana has been this beautiful story, this college football underdog story. You could even call it a Rudy-esque story, Kevin Bowen. And you have been complimentary of IU football. I don't want to say you've waved the flag, but, you know, we've talked and said very nice things about IU football and about Kirk Cignetti. And every time Sig talks, it's funny, and he's giving a jab here and he's giving a jab there. And now you wake up this morning, not so funny, is it, KB? Not so funny when you're squarely down the sights of Kirk Cignetti and Curtis Rourke.
Is it the most sorry fan thing that, like, this is the last thing I wanted?
I know. We got to call him little brother. You got to make fun of IU football and their cute little one season they've had.
Like, if you beat IU, we were just happy to get there.
Sure,
what a magical season. We don't care. And then if you lose, you got to hear it for the rest. Like,
you'll be made fun of forever.
I'm married into an IU family. My father-in-law actually was an IU football season ticket holder for years.
Of course he was. Sure.
And I got to listen to that.
Yeah, you do have to listen to that.
Like, Notre Dame football can't lose to IU football.
No, they can't lose to IU football. You're damn right. If you play anybody else, you lose. You think, well, you know, Riley Leonard, we reached his ceiling, or ultimately they had too many injuries, or we fell in the seeding because of the NIU loss. But none of that matters anymore. Cute little fun Kirk Cignetti. It all changed yesterday at 12:30 after ESPN made his way to half
For
an
show
hour.
content-wise, I love the matchup because either you're going to get a trash-talking Kevin Bowen or you're going to get a pissed-off Kevin Bowen.
Yeah.
We win either way.
A tail-tucked Kevin Bowen.
I know. I've already thought about my emotions if they lose, and it is so pathetic how mad I have already gotten. Like, I couldn't sleep last night. Like, I'm watching.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'm watching the Chiefs do the most Chiefs things out
of
ever.
course.
To put a bow tie on yet another one-score win, which I don't think helps the Colts, by the way. I do want to get to that at some point here.
Okay. It's a good tease.
There I am sitting in bed thinking, is Curtis Rourke going to throw for 300 or 360? And I'm like, what am I doing to myself?
Can you imagine? And the thing is, the media is just going to love up on Kirk Cignetti. They already have. You know, people hate Notre Dame anyway.
Sure.
They make fun of Notre Dame anyway. If they lose at home, it's going to be fantastic. But, I mean, good morning. We got to cover everything. We have Barry Odum conversation. The Pacers lost. And then stuck in the middle, I know today maybe not as much. This is obviously the biggest week for the Colts leading up to the Broncos on Sunday.
Game of the year in Week 15, 6 days away. Denver a 4-point favorite, 4:25 9:45 kick. Colts and Broncos coming up here from Mile High. Shout out to Jackson in studio, who's going to observe a little bit here. The Franklin Central Flashes. Happy to have him.
I like that.
In studio on this Monday morning. But yeah, Andy, it's a busy one. We will sprayed all parts of our college football field here in this show. We'll start things off with Tom Dienhart from West Lafayette coming up at 8. Barry Odum, that announcement will be tomorrow, 9 a.m. tomorrow for the defensive-minded head coach from UNLV who spent time at Missouri as well. Arkansas as their DC, a former linebacker, very decorated player, collegiately back in the day at Missouri. And then 8:30, we'll get the Notre Dame side of it from Pete Samson. They will host, of course, on Friday night. They have planned for this sort of thing. They actually have finals next week. They want their student body to be there. What is the latest on Notre Dame, who have certainly some key injury situations heading into that game? And then Zach Osterman coming up at 9:30. Did I see this right? 3,500? Is that the visiting ticket allotment?
Yeah, I think so. It's something like that.
And that's for every visiting team.
I believe so. Yeah, that's got to be blanket, no matter how big or small your stadium is. I mean, it'd be difficult. You'll never really know. Halfway through the game, if Notre Dame's down 24-0, Bob, who's in Section 118, will just take his jacket
100%.
Off and turn it inside out and have the Indiana logo.
I cheered for Bobby in the winter, and then I cheered for Coach Holtz.
It doesn't really matter.
Back in the fall.
Yeah. You go to break, you're like, man, Notre Dame's got 98% of the fan base. You'll come back, and there's a scattering of red everywhere. What's going on?
I can't tell you how many people reached out. They're like, oh, this is a win-win for you. I'm like, what?
It's not a win-win. No, it's not a win-win.
I made the analogy to you boys several weeks ago, and I guess I'll have to reiterate it a lot here over the next 10 to 11 days. I have room in my heart for one woman. I have room in my heart for one team.
Right.
Period.
That's it.
End of story.
It's easy. You're a simple man.
Win-win?
You're a simple man.
Oh, my God. I mean, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Well, it's not a win.
Here's Holtz on my shirt. The first day of kindergarten. I tweeted the picture yesterday.
I did see that. I like that. Of course, now you have to wear one of him in his podcast, but that's an entirely different discussion we can get to. It's good for the state, but it's also weirdly bad for the state because one of these teams is losing. I guess that would be the only thing is you have Notre Dame and IU played somebody else and they both won. The state of Indiana would have two teams. But, I mean, it kicks everything off, too. It's a Friday night. Again, so it gets to ruin your entire weekend, not just your Saturday and Sunday.
Like, it's an incredible sporting event for our state, surely. But, to the point we were making earlier, Andy, this is not Louisville, Kentucky hatred.
No, it's not.
I mean, I don't think Notre Dame football fans literally think about the IU football program keeping them up at night. I don't think the IU football faithful has thought about, man, we should be Notre Dame. No, hell, 90% of our country probably doesn't even know that Notre Dame's in Indiana.
Well,
they're like, wait, where's South Bend on a map?
It's fair point, yeah.
So, it's a monumental event just because, so many people obviously have allegiance to one school or the other. But, it's a far cry from the hatred. I guess I should make a plea on air. I will happily, if anyone is selling tickets, I will happily speak with them.
Now, you want a ticket? You want a discounted ticket? I mean, you're not.
I want a ticket.
Okay, I was about to say, you're not thinking, let's meet up in a parking lot. I'll give you my Venmo and send you $1,400.
I'm going to need a lot more than the Venmo. I might I might need to pay off a mortggage payment or two.
Kevin's going to wake up in a bathtub missing a kidney.
That secret PayPal account?
Feel free to check, but the cheapest I saw was... What, 1,400?
It was around then, yeah. And, of course, it's not, and there's no offense to Notre Dame, it's not a stadium that holds 105,000 people either. It's not one of these SEC places.
I mean, think about our other hosting venues.
Sure, Ohio State.
Penn State, Texas, and Ohio State.
By the way, I went to the Big Ten championship game.
So you did end up going?
I ended up going. A lot of beer was consumed. It was a pretty good time. It's just a very sad, the Penn State fans that were there and we talked to, they knew they were going to lose the game. Does that make sense? They had a good time.
They had some chances early.
Yeah, I mean, the field looked fantastic. James Franklin now 1-14. 1-14 in big-time games. So we'll get to that. I guess quickly, your thoughts. Do you have any thoughts on Barry Odum? I know it's not a name we talk too much about, but obviously he was a head coach of UNLV, one of the teams that played over the weekend and lost over the weekend, if that matters.
Yeah, again, for the 2-year stint at UNLV, based off their historical, I guess not to take a shot at Shane Steichen's alma mater, but ineptness as a college football program, that's darn impressive what he did there for 2 years. remember, he also dealt with the NIL Tyler Sluka quarterback drama.
That's what I was going to bring up.
Back this fall.
Sluka.
So,
yeah.
that was quite the storyline for about a week or so in the college football world. The Missouri resume doesn't bother me maybe as much as something. We went 500 at Missouri in the SEC. Like, is that the end of the world?
Right.
I mean, obviously it's not great, but I also don't think it's horrific by any means. Certainly the defensive-minded part is a little surprising. I thought you would see more of an offensive-minded head coach. I know a lot of people think highly of his OC at UNLV. We'll see if Brendan Marion comes with him to West Lafayette. But, again, I thought no matter what the hire would be, I thought, okay, where's the Kurt Cignetti-ish stuff on the resume? And it's probably going to a place that really no one has won at. And he did win. Again, it was 2 years, so that's not like an overwhelming amount. But I would think the other thing that would be encouraging for Purdue fans is like, when he took that UNLV job, he came from Arkansas as a DC.
Right.
So it's not like he came with a bunch of – it was like he had the JMU haul that Kurt Cignetti brought with him to Bloomington. So, I don't know if I'm like, again, and I guess who really cares? I'm not sitting here acting like it's some grand slam. But I obviously see reasons why Mike Babinski would have some attraction.
Yeah, we'll talk more about this as we go today, definitely at 7:35. I think for me, I was not surprised at the hire. It seemed that Barry Odum, it seemed like some of the names like a Tyson Helton and other ones that we talked about weren't being talked about, and that Barry Odum was starting to be more talked about. I think for me, my only disappointment is no one's hiring John Summerall, the Tulane coach. I was high on him, so he was my pick. And for whatever reason, he's a much younger guy. Maybe Babinski and others thought this is, even though he has good head coaching experience at Troy and Tulane, maybe it's a little bit too much Ryan Walters. It's a young guy. I need more of a veteran in there. The 2 years prior, the UNLV, before they got Barry Odum, I think they were 2-10 and 5-6. So this has been a relatively iffy or bad program, and Odom made it a much better one. As we go today, I do have a couple things. I reached out to a buddy of mine who's a huge Missouri fan that I actually worked with when Barry Odom was the head coach there at Missouri. And so just, what happened at Missouri, what didn't happen. Remember, they were going Big 12, SEC, Gary Pinkel, their Hall of Fame coach, retiring. Up next was Barry Odom, following the guy, if you will. So some of the stuff could be skewed at Missouri. And then I talked to a guy yesterday, Steve Cofield, who does radio, follows UNLV, does an afternoon show there in Vegas, which sounds like a fun job. And he thinks, at least 10-plus players are going to make the move with Barry Odom. He thinks, there's a few guys that can play. Obviously Purdue stunk last year, so sure, I'll take a UNLV over a 1-11 guy at Purdue. And he said defense will be talked about, but he was very forward-thinking in his offense. He wasn't one of these defensive guys that just left the offense alone and just focus on the defense. Quite the opposite. And he said he was pretty good with the media, very good with the media, and expects him to go in the portal and to be able to land some guys at Purdue. So I think it's a high floor. I'm not sure how high the ceiling is, but I think it's a high floor, solid, safe hire from Purdue. That's what I think.
9 a.m. tomorrow for Barry Odom and the announcement with Purdue there on that hire. Portal opens up today. So obviously that hire, 7 to 10 days was the original timeline from Mike Babinski. They were able to check that box. I do have a confession to make to you guys at some point here on this Monday morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
I feel like
a sports confession or a life confession?
Sadly, it's life.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry to go there
Boy,
here
like
at 7:13 on a Monday.
It's a good tease, though.
Yeah,
it's a good
we'll
tease.
do that a little bit later. It's December 9th. I felt like we have debated this at different points over the last month and a half, and it couldn't summarize more where we're at right now. Was last night the worst loss of the season for the Pacers?
I don't know. We're getting dangerously close to
and the
needing
fact
to have
that
a
I've said
powwow.
that on probably 4 to 5 occasions through the first 25 games is certainly an indictment on the season right now. If you are a good team, if you're legit about turning the corner, you come home, you beat a Hornets team on a back-to-back, that is a bad basketball team that was missing their best player, and not have your coach after the game question your effort.
Yeah.
Effort.
Yeah, the Hornets had lost.
He went E-word.
Yeah, they've lost 8 straight games. They had not won a home or a road game outside the first game of the year when they won in Houston. October, I think I tweeted this out, October 23rd, maybe. It was before Halloween. It was before Halloween.
LaMelo
So last
and
time the
street
Hornets,
clothes. They played the
I mean,
previous
come on.
nights. All those boxes. I mean, the Pacers aren't looking ahead to anything. They don't play till Friday. That was the most embarrassing effort for me this season.
Yeah, it's never good when Miles Turner has 1 rebound and Nick Richards has 14.
Well, I mean, T.J. McConnell, they should have carried him home last night for his effort.
Well, they might have to.
Pacers lose 113-109. It is a very quiet next 10, 11 days. This is, if you're going to get anything corrected, practice time, film session, kumbaya moments, whatever needs to happen. We'll try to talk about it with Rick Carlisle tomorrow.
Maybe, Mark, they need to go out in the jungle with Aaron Rodgers and chant like he did, going to the darkness.
Just officially eliminated
with the camera crew.
He's got plenty of time. He's already taking bookings, I think.
He's already done.
How about the bleeping Chiefs? Was that serious last night?
I'm so tired of them.
Matthew
but of course
Wright
they
hits
won.
a screamer off the
Our
upright.
guy here's a Chiefs fan. I thought it was
going to make a hole in the left
Oh,
upright.
no.
Unbelievable.
It's so Chiefs, too, that like any other team, that doink would have gone
the other way.
Well,
Well,
of
especially
course.
Chicago.
Mark
yeah.
can see that. A lot of offense for the Bears yesterday.
I'm used to just seeing like single digits for a first half total of yardage lately.
Good things happen to good teams.
That's the first time I've actually
congratulations.
checked out of a game in a long time.
Yeah, well.
I was like, I'm doing something else with my day. This is not worth my time.
Anything else with your day? Go rake the rest of the leaves because of the cold weather. So, KB, I know that's what you did on Saturday, probably.
I did. 15 bags of them.
There you go. My God.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure the state's still picking them up, though. Is this the last Saturday? I thought it was last week.
Well,
oh, boy.
That's a good question. Notre Dame, Syracuse, big win on Saturday, and I said it's time to go do some Leaf duty.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, your morning checked out, obviously. The Indiana Notre Dame stuff. We'll let you hear from Marcus Freeman and Kirk Cignetti as we go. Paces are a mess and a busy week there, college basketball and the NFL. Appreciate you waking up with us. It's a Reaction Monday right here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Down. Brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. The Dogs take on North Dakota State at Hinkle Fieldhouse Tuesday, December 10th. Get your seats by visiting butlersports.com/buy tickets.
It is a busy morning check down. Anytime we return from a weekend, it usually is that. And Andy Sweeney, it is quite the local flavor to lead us off.
Yeah, you know where we're going to start every single check down. We're going to start with Notre Dame and Indiana playing in the college football playoff. The first round game, it's coming up December 20th. That's going to be a Friday there in South Bend. 11-1 Indiana, 11-1 Notre Dame. Now, we have seen tickets for under $1,000, so I expect the entire Bowen family to go now. Everybody, aunts, uncles, cousins. I mean, they're on sale.
I think the processing fees is about max's $529 right now.
I think you're probably right. So let's let you hear from Marcus Freeman. He was on First on ESPN last night on the selection show that went 3-4 hours. Here's Freeman on Indiana, what he's seen with the Hoosiers.
Being a college football fan, you can't help but notice what a terrific job they've done there at Indiana in this year. To go 11-1 in the Big Ten Conference and to win some games against some really good opponents speaks to where that program is. So we understand the challenge we have coming up. We've been able to watch a little bit of film in the past hour or two, and it doesn't take long to watch them play. And I just turn on the Ohio State game to watch them, do some really good things on offense and defense that is going to present a huge challenge on the Friday coming up.
All right, so there's Marcus Freeman, obviously line. Indiana did nothing on offense in that Ohio State game.
That opening drive.
Just besides that, now, Kirk Cignetti yesterday, we'll talk about this as we go, KB. He really stressed, we won't play it here, but he really stressed, and the only thing he stressed was that they learned that they needed to deal with crowd noise better from Ohio State. He really stressed that. He went on with ESPN and CBS. Here's Cignetti. He's ready to roll, though. Playoff time for the Hoosiers.
We're excited about it. Going to be playing a good football team, very well coached. It's won 10 games in a row, and we're a good football team, too. And I think the big thing for us, the lessons we learned when we went to Ohio State on the road with the crowd noise and how we responded, it's important we apply that to our next road game, and I'm confident that we will.
The line opened at 7.5. It's up to 8 now. Sorry, go ahead.
He has brought that up endlessly since the Ohio State game.
Yep.
I speak as a Notre Dame fan here. I wouldn't be too worried about it a week from Friday.
Well, that's kind of the joke, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how Notre Dame Stadium is. Yeah. Sure, they've had moments where it's been a great atmosphere, but again, and I don't think, I think if you got some IU faithful, man, that they're going to empty the pockets. I don't think it's going to be, I'm not acting like it's going to be some 50-50 split, but I don't think it's going to be overwhelming in terms of this hostile, crazy SEC, drunk tailgate environment up there a week from Friday. 8 o'clock, it is the ESPN crew, Sean McDonough, Greg McElroy. This will lead off the college football playoff. The winner gets Georgia on New Year's Day night, 8:45. In the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. All right, last night over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, I'd argue it's the worst loss of the season for the Indiana Pacers. This is after Friday night when they look like last year's team. Score 132 against the Bulls, 62% from three. Finally snapped that month-long drought on the road. But then last night against a team without their best player in LaMelo Ball and on a back-to-back, the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets, who, what have they lost? 8 in a row, 9 in a row, something like that. They come into Gainbridge Fieldhouse and they beat you. The Pacers bench outscored the starters. Never a good sign.
It's not what Halliburton have, 9 points. He's already matched the amount of games he's been in single digits.
I think 11 was the high
of
any starter. Pascal Siakam also single digits. TJ McConnell was incredible, and that was it. So the Pacers are 10-15. They now enter kind of a weird schedule stretch here of just 2 games in the next 11 days. They actually won't play until Friday. I would say that's a welcome sign, but frankly, anything at this point besides playing basketball games is probably a welcome sign for this team.
Yeah, it's nasty. Quickly, college basketball. Yesterday, Purdue winners 83-78 over Maryland. KB, I don't know how much you watched of this game.
Braden Smith, very good.
Dude, that Queen guy from Maryland who Indiana wanted, he's good. He's really good. He's really, really good. I think he's one of the better young players I've seen. He's better than what I've seen this year from Cooper Flagg. I'll put it that way. I thought he was pretty good. Purdue was able to outlast their 83-78. NFL-wise, Mark, you talked about this last week. The 1 o'clock game stunk yesterday in the NFL.
I took a nap.
Did you? I almost did. Late night on Saturday. Did anything stand out?
I look forward to the Colts bye week each year, and I'm like, wait, this is what I get for it.
Yeah.
Dolphins, Jets in
Not
overtime.
good. I mean, that's your only game. That and the Giants and Saints was close. God bless. That was a terrible game. The Eagles were in a close game. I don't know. I mean, to me, it was a boring week in the NFL.
Yeah, I thought the Colts didn't get. I mean, really, all the help the Colts really need right now is to win, and then the Broncos and Texans were both on their bye. But we'll get some Colts reaction from this past week, and just a couple other items of note from me. Butler got smoked down at Houston on Saturday. Indiana did beat Miami of Ohio going back to Friday night. Indiana opens up their Big Ten play coming up tonight. Minnesota, that line I saw hovering right around 9 or 10. Minnesota, not very good once again this season. That'll be a 6:30 tip on Big Ten Network. And then again, Barry Odum, the hire in West Lafayette. Purdue announced that yesterday. They will make that official with press conference and all of that coming up tomorrow morning. Barry Odum, primarily Missouri. That's where he has been for the bulk of his career. Played there. Became the head coach when Gary Pinkel had to retire due to some health reasons. Was there 25-25 for 4 years. Left there, Arkansas defensive coordinator, and then has been at UNLV the last 2 years. We talked with Nathan Baird, I think it was, on Friday, and said, is the Purdue head coach coaching on Friday night?
And lo and behold.
He was. That would be Barry Odom. They lost to Boise State. Lost to Boise twice this year. Lost to Syracuse. Those were the 3 losses there. Again, just 2 years at UNLV, but did things at UNLV that no one's ever done. No one's ever sniffed, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing I don't think the contract details are out. I'm guessing he doubled, if not tripled, his pay. I'm guessing going from UNLV to Purdue in the Big Ten. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, because I have a couple more thoughts I want to get to with Barry Odom. On the other side, something happened yesterday in the NFL that KB says did not help the Colts. We'll dive into that. Plus, do Hoosier fans actually love the matchup with Notre Dame? We'll have fun with that as well. Appreciate you waking up with us. It's the Wake Up Call on a Monday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
AB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I've got sport-centric ornaments. The NFL Ornament of the Year. That's what I got. I want you guys to guess the 2024 NFL Ornament recipient was. And just to give you a little bit of history with it, I mean, I've got Allen, I've got Mahomes, I've got, Peyton and Eli and Cam Newton. When I opened up this year's ornament, I thought to myself, man.
You were surprised?
I know we've had a lot of cargo issues here in the world in the last handful of years. Did this just not get shipped properly?
Wow.
Or you know him. He's a quality football player.
Geno Smith.
Mark Dykton?
I'm going to go really rogue. I'm going to say Kyle Pitts.
What?
Derek Carr.
Possession into the end zone for us.
TJ Watt.
Nope.
Sam Darnold.
Daniel Jones.
Idiots!
I'm going to go way out of left field. Did she give you a Kyle Juszczyk ornament this year?
What he said?
I'm going to say Devontae Smith.
Terry McLaurin.
Wrong.
I've had people reach out. I will say I have heard the right answer, but I have not heard it from you two.
I'm going to go T. Higgins.
I'm going to go off of the guy who mentioned it in my DMs, Minka Fitzpatrick.
Mark Dykton and the DMs. Minka Fitzpatrick.
No. Really?
That is
Minka
completely random.
Fitzpatrick.
I couldn't believe how many people reached out about the ornament. Someone thought it was Willie Parker when I sent out a picture of it. Remember Willie Parker?
Yeah, I was going to say, was he the same number? 39? I think he was he not?
He was, yeah.
I think I'd rather have Willie Parker.
Does there anything say you're slow at running back than you rock number 39?
Yeah, well.
Where does your mom buy those from? That's what other people
I think it was Hallmark.
Of course it was Hallmark.
Yeah.
Any of the Bowens or any of the Daytons watch the Hallmark the Hallmark movies? Like a mom or an aunt or a grandmother or anything like that?
Ashley did for a while, and now she said they're all the same. I'm like, I told you that a million times.
I was going to say,
they're all
10
the same.
10 years ago you told her that.
Yeah, Ashley's probably got to be one of the youngest people in the world
Yeah, I know.
watching the Hallmark movies.
They're like, are you sure you want to watch this and not something else?
I did think yesterday, Steelers-Browns, that was a game I watched a whole lot of, so I got a lot of Minka Fitzpatrick. If you want to look at mainly just Sunday's results, Andy, in terms of how it benefited or not the Colts. Again, game of the year is in Denver coming up on Sunday. We'll reiterate that 1,000 times this week. I didn't think the Colts got a lot of help yesterday. I didn't think there was an overwhelming amount of opportunities to get that help. Two games that I guess went against the Colts. At some point, you want Miami to lose. Miami and Indianapolis have the same record at 6-7. Now, the Colts have the tiebreaker. Tua getting hurt was huge for the Colts. Obviously, to play, Tim Boyle and Tyler Huntley in that game, they beat Miami, so they have that head-to-head. If you look at Miami's schedule the rest of the way, it is rather manageable on paper. But still, they would need to make up a game on the Colts to be above them. The other game that I thought weirdly went against the Colts, and some will disagree with this.
Okay.
I actually thought Sunday Night Football went against Indy.
Okay, why is that? Because I think most people would say, well, this is good. The Chargers lost. We're good to go. I think I know where you're going, but go ahead and tell the people.
With Buffalo losing to the Rams yesterday and Kansas City winning, that now has opened up a 2-game lead for the number 1 seed. Kansas City in Week 18 plays Denver.
Yep.
All your eggs are in the Denver basket.
At this point.
I mean, it's a lot to overcome the Chargers. The Chargers are a full 2 games above you. I don't think the Chargers are going to fall flat on their face. If you think the Colts are going 3-1 the rest of the way or something like that, then, it's borderline, I think, impossible to overcome Baltimore and the Chargers. So I think what you care more about is Kansas City having something to play for Week 18, not it being in the rest situation. If they're in the rest situation, then you're looking at Carson Wentz against the Denver Broncos in Week 18.
You're spot on, and it could be wrapped up this week. Not wrapped up, but you know what I mean. The Chiefs play the Browns this week. The Bills now have to load up after that game and go play the Detroit Lions and Man Campbell. On rest, by the way.
And the Steelers still have 3 losses. So I don't know where they would exactly fit into that. I don't know how that would look, but Again, it's not like a overwhelmingly negative Sunday for the Colts in terms of what games went against them, but I think in an ideal world, you definitely wanted the Jets to beat the Dolphins there in that overtime game. I could listen to people that say, no, the Chargers, they could, have a huge tailspin down the stretch. I know Herbert got banged up last night. He ended up staying in the game and finishing that game. But still, I think you want Kansas City to have something to play for Week 18. Just to remind everybody, if you beat Denver on Sunday, you still need Denver to lose one more time this season. You're two back of them right now. They're 8-5. You're 6-7. Denver scheduled the rest of the way. Chargers, at Bengals, and then Chiefs. Obviously, those are three teams that have some talent. There are three teams that are playing for different things. You want the Chiefs to be playing for something, and last night's result didn't kind of help you in that area.
No, it didn't. Immediately I thought, well, this is good. The Chargers lost. That's fine. I got thinking, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We need Kansas City to be playing for something down the stretch. Now, the funny thing with Kansas City is they're good enough as a football team where if they trotted out Carson Wentz in the final week of the year and whatever backups, Kareem Hunt, whoever else they have out there, I could see them. There's always a game that goes right down to the end where one team's not playing anybody. Like either it's a playoff team that's resting and they're ready to go, or it's a team that doesn't need to win. They need to preserve their draft pick, and they're going to go out there and ruin somebody's day.
Would anything sum up the Colts in the last decade of Carson Wentz and Carson Steele?
I know.
Beating Indianapolis
I've
indirectly.
never seen a quarterback panic as easy as he has done. What in the Carson Wentz is that right?
But you know what? Don't bring Carson Steele into this. Leave Carson Wentz.
Was that
He's to
Booger in the
himself.
Booger Mobile?
Mm-hmm. By the way, did you see
it broke down permanently?
Carson Steele on the field last night for the kneel downs there.
Booger and Herbie got into it a little bit yesterday.
Well, if
on
it's
the
a 4-hour
ESPN
TV show, at some point you're probably going to get into it.
Can we say that? Listen, ESPN does a great job in many things, and there's a bunch of trolls on the internet, and all they do, and I understand it, and at times, we fall into that. I fall into that. So yesterday, they had the selection show at noon, and they did a great job through all the NFL stuff saying at noon, NFL Countdown is going to break away, and we'll go to ESPN2 and the college football playoff rankings at noon. I remember a couple years ago, maybe 6-7 years ago, KB, CBS did this. Remember when CBS... on the college basketball selection show, they made us wait essentially an hour and a half, 2 hours to get the full bracket. Instead of giving us the full bracket, they gave us a piece of the bracket. They talked about it. We went to a commercial break, and they kept doing that.
That was one of the matter moments I've ever had.
And it got leaked, and the bracket got leaked, and their moment was ruined, and everyone made fun of them, and they realized it, and they said, this is a one-year thing. We're going to go back. We're going to give you the games right at the beginning of the selection show. We're not going to make you wait. I guess I do have beef with ESPN yesterday. They made us wait over 20 minutes before they got to the rankings. And then what bothered me, even though he's boring as hell, Ward Manuel, the Michigan AD, who's a committee chairman, he's talking, and Reese Davis does a good job in these interviews. He's talking, why they did what they did. SMU, Alabama, what about Indiana and Notre Dame and all these things that we care about. And he's talking, and it's 1 o'clock. And I'm like, guys, at 1 o'clock, I go to the red zone till 7:30.
Yeah.
I am to the red zone at 1 o'clock all the way to 7:30. And I just thought you had all this time in real estate that people weren't doing anything. They didn't take advantage of
Don't get into the ring with
the
the NFL. And they try to get in the ring with the NFL.
Ward Manuel can't be talking at 1 o'clock when even as crappy as those 1 p.m. games were.
You need Scott Hansen talking to you.
That's what people are paying attention to.
Worry level, I was a little surprised the line has opened up 7-8 Notre Dame IU. I thought it'd be a little bit more like 4-5.
Okay.
Kind of around that area. Just a couple of brief thoughts on the game. First off, for Notre Dame, the health of their running back, Jeremiah Love, will be a huge, huge thing to watch. He's the most explosive player I've seen at Notre Dame. I think you can talk to people since Rocket. I'm not going to act like I have vivid memories of Rocket. But he has that level of explosive nature. I do think Notre Dame's calling card is that run game. With what Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price can do, and then Riley Leonard, that's something Indiana really hasn't seen, of that dual threat nature to their run game. It's a Notre Dame defense that is feasted on turnovers. Indiana does a wonderful job protecting the football. So I think that will be a huge storyline. And I thought where we've seen chinks in the Indiana armor here lately has been just that offensive line being able to keep the statue of Curtis Rourke upright. Notre Dame is down their two top pass rushers and their top corner, and I thought USC took advantage of that. at times in that final matchup of the season. So I think that's a big question mark from a Notre Dame defensive side of it is, can you get pressure on Rourke? Because if you don't pressure Rourke,
right, he'll pick you apart.
He can certainly
yes, he can
pick you apart. And I think if you're Notre Dame on the worry level too, is you have not seen an offense that's balanced. Yeah, Notre Dame has stopped Army. It's a nice feat, but Army's not throwing it. Yeah, they stopped, or I shouldn't say they really stopped them, but they beat USC, but USC really wasn't running it in that game. Indiana, I think, is one of the more balanced offenses around, and in particular, Notre Dame just hasn't seen that at all.
Yeah, so the first thing that came to my mind on all of this is, and I don't know, maybe the Notre Dame fans I'm seeing, and you obviously, I wouldn't say you're down, but you're skeptical. You're pessimistic before a lot of these games.
Well, they lost to Northern freaking Illinois.
Months ago.
Do you want me naked around here?
It was 2.5, 3 months ago.
Have you seen Notre Dame try and kick a field goal lately?
I think that's...
McAfee's little college game day kicking competition looks better than Notre Dame's field goal
What's the kid,
kicking.
the local kid? Where did he go to school? Was it Georgia?
Oh, yeah.
The guy, the kid that kicked it for... Was it the Fishers kid?
Yeah,
won a
we
couple
get him in the
$100,000?
portal. What was his name, Tyler?
I don't know. I can't remember. My thing was... Indiana fans love this matchup, KB.
Sure.
I almost feel like the IU fan is a little bit cockier today than the Notre Dame fan, which I find all sorts of interesting. So that was kind of number one. The number two thing I thought of, and this was going to be true with Indiana anyway, in my opinion, was Indiana played like crap against Ohio State. Let's say what it was. They didn't play very good football at all. I know Cignetti can say, well, we still had good defense. Yeah, but your offense didn't play well. You couldn't handle the crowd noise, and your special teams just absolutely fell apart. That's not good. You're having, at least 2 of the 3 phases of the game, you are having big problems. The reason I bring that up is if Indiana goes, and they have been a very good story, and I am still surprised they're not being bashed nationally as much as they have for buying out of the Louisville game, for the strength of schedule, for the draw they got. Not their fault in the Big Ten. But if they go and Notre Dame houses them, that's going to be the 2 big-time data points that we got from IU football this year were them not playing very good. And so that's going to be interesting to me as well as, for so many people, this is kind of house money that Indiana's playing with. And while some of that may be true, if they go out there and they fall apart at Notre Dame the way they fell apart at Ohio State, I do think that says something. And the last thing I'll say...
Yeah, but the season's still going to be celebrated for what it's been.
It will, but I'll be there to remind them that the 2 biggies that they played, they laid down like a dog. So if I'll be the one that...
I think Notre Dame laying an egg would have a little bit different ramifications than Indiana.
We have praised Cignetti, but if they go out there and lose 37-14 and Notre Dame runs them over, it's okay to say, hey, listen, you had 2 big data points this season and your football team did not show up. The last thing I would say on this game would be this, and obviously it won't be the last thing. We'll have all week or 2 weeks. I feel like, you tell me I feel like, not that it's random, I feel like I know less about this. I feel like this Notre Dame team nationally, people don't know as much about as some of the other teams you guys have had in South Bend. Am I wrong there? Like, I feel like the average football fan would have trouble breaking down this Notre Dame team much more than some of the other teams that are in the college football playoff. And I don't know why that's the case. Maybe it's injuries. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, their first-round corner is out for the year. He got hurt.
But there's not a big-time wide receiver.
Yeah,
Riley Leonard's okay.
Right,
he's fine. He's good.
Not explosive at wideout whatsoever. No one has emerged at wideout. Yeah, Leonard, I guess he's certainly more of a runner than he is a thrower. Honestly, probably their most national moment of the season was opening night, right? Them winning at A&M.
Probably.
That was kind of your darling moment. And again, Notre Dame's schedule, I don't want to act like it's been some juggernaut with these other wins that they've had. I think it's a little better than maybe the committee has given them credit for when you start to look a little deeper into their resume. But, I remember asking Greg Rakestraw this probably about a month ago, Andy, and I opened this up to any of our, fans that consider themselves a little bit more on a historical sense in the state. I'd love to hear a comp of another sporting event our state has had. And like Butler Duke in the national title game at Lucas Oil Stadium is probably the first thing that comes to mind of like, okay, marquee stage, in-state opponent. Obviously, you had a little bit of the Cinderella Hoosiers movie type feel to Butler, so that probably plays into it. Purdue and Indiana met way back in the day when the NIT somewhat mattered.
I know,
but
it's
let's
so
not
long.
act
It's
like,
decades ago. I know.
That is a comp to, again, the first ever game in the college football playoff. You and I talked earlier in the show. We brought up, Louisville and Kentucky in the NCAA tournament. That, to me, is on even a higher pedestal because those two fan bases hate each other. I don't think Notre Dame football fans and IU football fans, think about it at night how much they hate the other one. Granted,
we need to start that up. That's what the next 2 weeks are for. Come on.
It was rather sickening how my mind was racing last night trying to sleep. Imagine if Notre Dame somehow lost this game a week from Friday.
So how are you watching the game, by the way? Is it all the family? Are you alone? I mean, are you going to allow the Indiana brethren to be there alongside you? Do you know? Have you guys even talked about it?
No, I do not know. Again, here's my shameless plea of anyone out there potentially selling maybe some face value-ish tickets. I would be all about that. But I need to be around Notre Dame people. Yeah, I mean, my in-laws are not supporting me whatsoever. Maddie's not supporting me.
Nor should they.
She's like, no, I will cheer for Indiana.
Really?
Oh, yeah, 1,000%. I'm like, oh, yeah.
See, I don't know if I like that.
Maddie Bowen just grinding over the Ben Chappell days of IU football.
That's what I was about to say.
Those Jerry DiNardo years really kept Maddie Lubbers up at night. I mean, come on. What are we doing here?
I had a buddy's cousin who I think dated Ben Chappell.
All these IU football fans are just coming out, coming out of the woodwork.
Right. No,
living and dying through Jerry DiNardo and Bill Lynch and
by the time we get to Friday, IU football fans will be cocky on this game. I cannot wait.
But, there's no even roster-wise, Andy, and I'm not saying, again, Louisville, Kentucky has it, but, Notre Dame's got two in-state kids that start.
Right.
Drake Bowen and Jack Kaiser, and both of them, I would say, were more of, Purdue-ish, Andrean and Pioneer. That's a little bit more in the northern part of the state. I don't think the JMU kids are really, all about whatever, the Notre Dame rivalry. So I just don't, I'm curious if there's any other event out there. Obviously, the Colts in a Super Bowl and the Pacers are in the NBA Finals.
Sure.
Those are different, but I don't know if we have had an event like this.
No. I mean, that's what makes it great. I mean, that is what makes it great because the answer is you haven't. We've had, you have one or two teams and you can all, kind of get behind those teams if you're in a state. That's fine. You mentioned Butler versus Duke in Indianapolis here down the road for the Final Four in the national championship game. That would be one. But still, I'm sure there were plenty of fans who are like, Butler's a nice story, but is the Indiana fan? I mean, they're jealous, right? The Purdue fan. We want to be in the national title game. What did you make before we take a break? Yesterday, it was hilarious. While ESPN was trying to make us think, is it going to be Alabama or SMU that makes a national title or that makes a college football playoff? Did you see Brett McMurphy? For people that don't know, Brett McMurphy actually worked at ESPN for a little while. He's a college football insider. He broke the news and reported that SMU was in and Alabama wasn't in. Probably 20, 25 minutes before they announced the college football field. Did you happen to see that?
I did not.
Oh,
I was happy, though, that they kept SMU in the field. I mean, you lose on a 56-yarder while Alabama's sitting at home.
I know.
While, Tennessee's sitting at home, while Notre Dame's sitting at home. While
Part of me surprised still, but still funny.
Yeah. And so SMU ended up being what? They were above Clemson, weren't they?
Yeah, SMU,
they're 11, right?
They ended up being the 11 seed, and I think they got a shot to go into Penn State and make that a fun football game. So I really do.
Just to remind everybody of those first-round matchups, obviously you've got Notre Dame and Indiana. They are the standalone Friday night 8 o'clock game, and again, that will not go up against the NFL. The NFL plays Saturday games a week from Saturday. The Saturday games, you'll have Clemson, Texas from Austin. You'll have SMU and Penn State from Happy Valley, and then you will have Tennessee and Ohio State from the Horseshoe.
Coming up on the other side, how did Purdue and Mike Babinski settle on Barry Odum? We'll get that, plus what needs to happen now to make this Purdue football team better than 1-11. There's a lot of things that need to be done. Tom Dienhart, he joins us next, hour number 2 around the corner here on The Fan on a Monday.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
8 o'clock hour on what is a busy Monday, and a man that has been very busy, not only with us, but certainly his coverage on Gold and Black. Purdue's got a new head football coach, and to talk more about Barry Odum, Tom Dienhart from Gold and Black joins us. Official announcement coming tomorrow, 9 a.m. press conference to announce Barry Odum from Mackey, and Tom with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Tom, good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing outstanding. Another beautiful day here is dawning, and new era of Purdue football is dawning, right? I mean, you mentioned tomorrow, 9 a.m., the public's invited to Mackey Arena even to watch the introduction of Barry Odum. So we will take the lid off this new era and see where it goes.
The white smoke, I guess, yesterday from West Lafayette, I probably am guessing the answer is no, but was Barry Odum a candidate at all 2 years ago when they hired Ryan Walters?
I don't believe so. No, not at all. I think Tyson Helton was Western Kentucky coach last time. I think they kicked the tires on the Kansas State coach, Chris Kleeman. I think Dave Clawson out of Wake Forest was, but no, I do not believe Odom was on their radar. So, yeah, he would have just been starting at UNLV, and, of course, he had a great 2-year run there. So, yeah, they got their guy. And I tell you what, at least from a personality standpoint, I think he certainly is going to fit this community in the school.
Tom Dienhart with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Tom, the last couple weeks, we've taught you quite a bit, so we appreciate the time again this morning. Do you know who else they talked to in the coaching search, and ultimately, how did they end up settling on Barry Odum?
I do not know who else they talked to, what other tires they kicked. If I were to guess, I think this may have been target number one for AD Mike Bobensky, and he may have had this guy in the bag for a few days, maybe even a week. So, yeah, like I said, a guy I think checks a lot of boxes for Purdue, right? I think they had to have unequivocally a proven head coach, and Odom is that. 4 years at Missouri, 2016 and 19, in the last 2 years at UNLV. He's only 48 years old. And the one box he doesn't check, I thought maybe Purdue wanted to check, was he's not an offensive guy. He's cut his teeth on the defensive side of the ball, a long-time defensive coordinator. But you know what? From the start, Bobensky said he wasn't going to be boxed in by offense or defense. He just wanted a good head coach. He must think he got his man.
Do we know yet if he'll bring his offense coordinator, Brennan Marion, who I think a lot of people are high on, with him to West Lafayette?
We do not know that yet. He is not the interim head coach. A guy named Dell Alexander is going to be the interim head coach for the UNLV bowl game against Cal. They're in the L.A. Bowl. If you want to tune in, maybe get a look at some future Boilermakers who may follow Odom to West Lafayette. But, yeah, I'm not sure about what staffers are coming with Barry. I've got a long list of questions I'm looking at now. I wrote down last night for Coach Odom. That certainly is one of the top ones.
Again, Tom Dienhart's with us here. Gold and Black has had your coverage on this head coaching search. It was going to be about a week long, and it ended up being about a week. Was what Mike Bobensky said. And, again, Barry Odom announced tomorrow morning up there in West Lafayette. Tom, what sticks out more to you on the resume? Is it what he did at Missouri or what he did at UNLV? I know historically UNLV has nothing of note really from a football program standpoint. So if you had to pick those two stops, 4 years at Missouri, taking over for Gary Pinkel, and then 2 years at UNLV, which one kind of stands out more to you?
Probably UNLV to a degree, but I will say this going back to Missouri. And he played a linebacker at Missouri, a rough and tumble guy, grew up in Oklahoma. He kind of reminds me of Dan Campbell, the Detroit Lions coach, kind of one of those kind of guys, a real tough guy. But at Missouri, the big hurdle there was following a legend in Gary Pinkel, one of the greatest coaches in Missouri history. So there was a lot of weight involved with stepping into those giant shoes. But he was only a 500 coach overall in Columbia. In Vegas, like you talked about, historically a terrible program. I think of Randall Cunningham, if you want a deep cut. I think Ickey Woods, two all-time great UNLV Rebels for you right there. But, again, just always a steep hill to climb in Vegas, and he was just incredibly successful out there in those 2 years. 10 wins this last year, 9 wins 2023, 2 bowls, 2 appearances in the Mountain West title game. So, on the field, without a doubt, his work in Vegas his best thus far in his career.
Yeah, Tom, you're spot on. 2 wins and 5 wins. That's what UNLV did the two seasons before Barry Odum arrived there. Tom Dienhart with us, gold and black. A couple other things here. You mentioned watching the bowl game. There might be some players who end up there in West Lafayette. What players are you looking at right now that you think could make the move from UNLV to Purdue?
Well, I'm still doing my intel on that. I haven't dug deep in that Vegas roster, so it shows you where my day's probably headed. So we'll see. I did talk to a writer, the Associated Press, Las Vegas-based writer last night, Mark Anderson. I just posted that on our website just to kind of get his perspective, his boots-on-the-ground perspective of Barry Odom and what he thought of just his overall program while he was in Vegas. So fans can check that out. Mark talks a little bit about some of the personnel, but we'll see. He did lead me to think that this was a largely veteran UNLV team. He didn't think a lot of key guys were going to be coming to Vegas because a lot of the key guys were seniors. So there's that. But he did say that UNLV signed the best recruiting class last Wednesday in the Mountain West. So maybe some of those players Barry just signed to be Rebels will end up flipping and becoming Boilermakers. One other thing to be mindful of today, transfer portal is officially open. December 9th is here. Of course, Purdue players could jump in early because their coach was fired. This is the day where, who knows, maybe some future Boilermakers come and matriculate to West Lafayette out of the portal. So Barry Odom's got his work cut out for him, guys. This roster is in disrepair, and he's really got to get to work.
24 hours and 52 minutes from now, 9 a.m. coming up tomorrow morning, you will have Barry Odum introduced to the media there in West Lafayette. Public can attend that coming up at Mackey tomorrow. Tom, I know it's been some sleepless nights and a very busy last week for you, so thanks for making time with us here on a couple different occasions.
Always enjoy it. Call anytime, fellas. Take care.
It's a great Tom Dienhart, gold and black, right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. And Barry Odum, 48 years old. Had that 4-year stint at Missouri, taking over for Gary Pinkel when he fell ill, and then fired there, 25 and 25. Went to Arkansas as their defensive coordinator, out to UNLV, and really 2 seasons at UNLV, but arguably their 2 best seasons in the history of the program.
Okay, so I want to get to Barry Odum and thoughts on Missouri just in a second. What are your thoughts on Purdue not swinging the Big Ten hammer and going after some of these Big 12 coaches? Because that was your thing.
You know, it was funny when I listened to a couple of different national college football podcasts. We had Pat Forty on last week. He does a great one with Dan Wetzel. It was interesting to me how little people think of the Purdue job nationally.
1,000%.
With the Big Ten label caveat on that.
They think it's a bad job, and I know from when Brom went to Louisville, even the Louisville people were like, his record at Purdue's not great, but Purdue's not a good job.
Yeah.
Being a little over 500 at Purdue is not the same as being 500 at Notre Dame or Alabama.
Right, and again, North Carolina, West Virginia, the 2 other, big, and I say big in quotes, openings that we have right now in this cycle. And, there's one I was listening to that was like, oh, no, I would put Purdue behind both of those jobs. And that is, again, just surprising to me. Less to do with, Purdue and its brand. And again, Purdue has been a very accomplished college football program. It's not like they've been the laughingstock or anything on that end. But I just thought the arms race of where we're at in college football, wanting a seat at the Big Ten or the SEC table is what you would be at. Now, the counter to that, Andy, might be this. Those Big 12, coaches that I mentioned, do they sit here and say, guys, Arizona State is 2 games away from playing for the national title?
I know. That's the other side.
Arizona State is 2 games away from playing for the national title.
Dude, I love that coach. I love that team. They're tough as hell.
Boise State
Come
is
on,
2 games
Arizona
away.
State.
So,
I know.
With the current iteration of the playoff, the Big 12, and I know this year was a different year, but the Big 12, and the thought is the ACC winner, they will get a bye. And they'll be 2 games away annually from making the college football playoff, whereas Purdue looks at it and says, wait a minute, we played 5 of the 12 teams in the college football playoff. That's what Ryan Walters
I forgot about that.
Just had this year.
I know he did.
So,
he played 5 of them. You're right.
Maybe there's just a little bit of fear that people look at that job and say,
sure,
well, I don't want to be the 17th seat at, a pretty talented 18 resource table in what the Big Ten has. Now, to be fair to Barry Odum, Andy, this was a name that people did mention. I don't think this is that obscure of a hire.
I would agree.
I think this is a name that people had thrown out there, and it's not like, Purdue went out and found whatever, the D or the F hire. I do think this was a name that very early on people had mentioned here, but I guess my view on Purdue was probably a little bit narrow-minded and a little bit too localized than how it's viewed nationally.
Yeah, I'm interested what Barry Odum says tomorrow at 9 a.m. And we hope to obviously get him on the air.
Sounds like
all
a
the
fiery
shows
dude.
do.
Sounds like kind of a hard ass. That's
think,
kind of your personality.
I'm interested because, and this is nothing against him, but sometimes if you get a name or an offensive name or something, immediately the fan base is excited before you ever get to the introductory press conference. I don't think you have that with Barry Odum. I think some Purdue fans are going to need to be sold a little bit on Barry Odum, so I'm interested in how he does that. I think he will do that. I think fans are just so hungry to be back to relevancy. He's how he is like Kirk Cignetti is. Indiana fans are like, can you just get us to the Weed Whacker Bowl? Can you get us to the Tony the Tiger Bowl?
Micron PC Bowl.
And I think that's a little bit of, Purdue fans is, we'll schedule 3-4 wins, get a couple Big Ten wins, let's get a recruiting class. I said I spoke to a buddy in Vegas who does radio out there, and, he mentioned, as Tom did, about his recruiting. He recruited the Missouri team that was awesome in the Big 12 and then went to the SEC. If you remember, in the East, they went to the SEC title game twice. Now, they got smoked. They lost to Cam at Auburn one of those times. But, he recruited that entire team, basically. And then at UNLV, he had success as well, a stop in the SEC. So I'm interested in kind of how he fires things up here and gets the fan base motivated. The other thing I would say, and you alluded to it, the Missouri stuff is interesting because Missouri was Big 12 and a very good Big 12 team. They went to the SEC and had early success, and then Gary Pinkel, who's a Hall of Fame coach, got ill, and Barry Odum was the next guy up. He was the defensive coordinator. I think he may have even had the title assistant head coach. He took over, but he took over a team that had kind of lost all those guys that were good early on in the SEC, and they kind of had to start recruiting SEC guys, and it took a little bit of time. And then at the end of his tenure, he had Drew Lock for a couple years, who, by the way, was just unspeakably bad yesterday for the Giants. Anyway, so Drew Lock, and then he had Kelly Bryant. Remember that name? Who was at Clemson?
I do. Vaguely.
Yeah, and he was a disaster there. So his Missouri stuff, he wasn't good at Missouri, but there are some reasons maybe as to why. But I'm more interested in, he took over in 2016 and he was ultimately fired there in 2019. The 5-6 years now, how is he, I guess I should say 5 years, how is he a different coach? Being at UNLV, having the stop at Arkansas. And I think, looking at some of the numbers, he is a defensive guy, but he has not run a boring offense. And so for me, it will be interesting who he's able to hire and or bring with him to Purdue, because if you go back to some of the Missouri and UNLV, he's got a lot of top 40 offenses in college football. So it's not like he's Kirk Ferentz.
He is 1-0 in his history at Ross-Ade. 40-37 with Drew Lock. They outgunned David Blau back in 2018 in a 40-37 win. Nothing says great NFL quarterback play like Drew Lock and David Blau. I feel like David Blau started on Thanksgiving like 3 years in a row.
I'd fist fight Drew Lock right now. Okay. So all I did was whine and cry about Tommy DeVito.
Mark's filling in the rest of the week. Well, Andy got clocked by Drew Lock in an alleyway.
He did. Remember he rapped the Young Jeezy song, Mark, on the sideline? Like, Drew Lock's about that life.
He's so cool.
He's about 4 turnovers a game. That dude stinks.
Andy's going to fight Drew Lock and then yell at the Mets for signing Juan Soto.
By the way, these secondary ticket prices, I want to throw these at you guys here in just a second. These numbers are absolutely astonishing here for the round 1 games. But one thing here on the Purdue job, Aaron points out, if the Boilermakers could sign up for P.J. Fleck at Minnesota, that type of run, would you do it? I think the answer is probably yes. If you can hover right around, 7 to 8 wins. You and I, Andy, and thank you to the Sports Corp for inviting us, we went over to Lucas Oil Stadium on Friday for a luncheon with Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner.
Yeah, he's great.
And I thought, both you and I were very impressed with him. 2 things stood out to me. One, he mentioned how he feels like this is an anomaly type of year for the Big Ten, and it's so top-heavy. He's like, as I sit here with you right now, we're going to get 4 in. There's real no debate, and you got to go really far down the list to find our 5th team. in most years, Petitti was like, we're going to probably look a little bit more like the SEC looks this year, where you have some of those 3-loss teams that you're trying to make cases for, or even, a 2-loss team that maybe doesn't have the resume that Ohio State does. Like Indiana. If Indiana would have slipped up one more time, would they have been in that mix? Penn State, their second loss obviously came in the Big Ten title game, but still, it's a little different. So I guess what I say is you're going to get Big Ten seasons upcoming where it's like a 9-3 resume might look like, hey, could they be the 12th team? Could they be the 11th team? We're debating them like we're debating Alabama and Ole Miss and some of those teams right here. And I thought the other thing, and of course this is just carrying the Indianapolis and the state of Indiana flag a little bit here, but I thought was interesting was Tony Petitti mentioned that the Big Ten championship is re-upped here for 4 more years. And he said that was a unanimous vote among their ADs.
Yeah, I was surprised, yeah.
And, I mean, think about
that's pretty good.
The ADs from Oregon and Washington and USC and UCLA, and you're voting for Indy? And you were there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I think, obviously, the secondary ticket market price wasn't huge, but look at some of the aerial shots of the other championship games from this weekend, and look at the aerial shots inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. I mean, you were there. I mean,
it was a very full stadium.
That was a packed house.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't.
If you look at some of these other venues,
yeah.
this past weekend, and great games, not packed houses there. So, I just thought that was interesting and certainly something that we can be proud of here in our local market.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed in the Purdue fan, even though there were more, or not Purdue, Penn State fans, even though there were more of them. I just thought the Oregon fan base was easily the drunker fan base on Saturday night, KB. I mean, easily they were the drunker fan base. I'm like, come on, Penn State. Corn-fed Pennsylvania boys, get out there and drink some Coors Light. What are we doing? Come on.
All right, let me throw these numbers at you.
All right, let's go.
The cheapest ticket. So I just did a brief scan of the secondary ticket market. The cheapest ticket at our 4 first-round sites. Remember the 4 first-round games. Penn State, SMU, Texas, Clemson, Ohio State and Tennessee, Notre Dame, and Indiana.
Can I guess?
Pre-processing fees.
I'm going to go with Texas, Clemson.
Texas, Clemson, the cheapest ticket is $292. That is third on the list. Penn State, SMU is the cheapest.
That was going to be my guess.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
At $152. So $152 for Happy Valley, $292 for Austin. The Horseshoe is at $319 for the cheapest ticket.
That's the game. Tennessee, Ohio State is probably the game I'm most interested in besides our interstate rival here.
Well, and the Ohio State alum Kirk Herbstreit was very quick to mention the Boo Birds will be out early for Ryan Day if things do not go well coming up a week from Saturday. So right now, again, $152 at Penn State, $292 at Texas, $319 at Ohio State, and in South Bend, Indiana, the cheapest ticket pre-fees, $951.
That's unbelievable. I'm looking at it right now. You're right. That's stunning.
3 times the amount.
That's stunning.
Of Ohio State.
I mean, I guess it's because the stadium's so big. Indiana, it's easy for them to get there. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like, are Indiana fans moving the scale? I feel like if Indiana went to Penn State, a bunch of Indiana fans would go there and the prices would be higher maybe at Penn State.
As a selfish Notre Dame fan, what I'm a little nervous about is cocky Notre Dame season ticket holder that lives in
Mishawaka.
No, like you got to travel to the game. Whatever. They live in Philly and they're rich,
right?
And they've got a lot of money, and they come in for 3 to 4 games a year.
And they give the other ones to the cousins. Yeah,
yeah. And in the back of their mind, they're thinking, "Oh, it's Notre Dame against Indiana,
please."
But if Notre Dame wins, we got to go to New Orleans, and if Notre Dame wins that, we got to go to Miami, and if Notre Dame wins that, we got to go to Atlanta. Are they throwing the secondary ticket market out there and saying, let me just pay for my trip to New Orleans for round 2.
Mark, are you reading my mind here? Who in this room has not been to New Orleans? Kevin Bowen. Just throwing
your tickets now, man.
Throwing that out there.
New Year's Eve to New Year's Day. A New Year's Day 8:45 p.m. game. How many naps do you have to have on New Year's Day to get it to 8:45?
I'm sure the missus would cheer for Notre Dame then. I'm sure she would put on a green sweatshirt and be like, "Honey, I got it. I'm paid. We're ready to go. We're going New Year's. We're going to we're going to New Orleans for an anniversary gift."
Maddie Bowen sticking with her alma mater and Indiana University, or do you think she should be a more supportive partner and cheer for her husband?
Okay, so here's the
Maddie spends all the times on the Peaks message boards. I mean, she has just lived and died with IU football.
Now, Kevin, you don't want to sleep on the couch the rest of the week.
Kellen Lewis and Ben Chappell debates she had.
She has Pete DePrimu's, is that how you say his name?
Jerry DiNardo era etched in her memory. Should she be more supportive, or should she be the, alma mater IU fan that she is? She's made it very clear to me she'll be cheering for IU.
I don't know what you married, and she knows what she married.
Yeah, but I don't know how much she's following IU all the other time. Like, if she didn't know they were in the college football playoff, if she wasn't watching this on a consistent basis, and then at the very end, she's going to cheer for IU, that's a bad
IU's
job.
coach was Kurt Kilbane, and she would believe me more than Kurt Cignetti.
Yeah, no, she's got to be more supportive. I don't like it. I'm bothered by it, just a little bit. Plus, I mean, the problem you got now is, the kids are getting older. I mean, Max isn't there yet, but I've even had to worry about this. I'm watching the Red Zone. I can't have my son watch the Giants and Saints.
Well, if you're watching Red Zone, you probably didn't see that game much.
Well, they had 5 plays. But, I don't want him to be 15, 16 months old, and the first thing he sees is Drew Lock grounding the ball into the turf at MetLife. I don't want to see that. And you got to watch out that Max doesn't get the IU bug early on, even though he's, 2.5? You can't have that.
Which shirt do we like better, Catholics versus cigarettes, or Rudy would have started at Indiana?
Oh, I think Rudy started. Boy, I think I like the Rudy one.
Yeah, I think so, too.
I think I like that. He would have had to be at JMU first, though. Rudy would be at JMU, and then he would transfer.
He'd have been a hell of a player, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, you transfer.
Cignetti would have had him all Sunbelt or whatever it was. All right, plenty to get to on the morning check down. Notre Dame side of it with Pete Samson coming up, covers the Irish for The Athletic at 8:30. Zach Osterman joining us at 9. Andy, go ahead and lead us off.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. The Dogs take on North Dakota State at Hinkle Fieldhouse Tuesday, December 10th. Get your seats by visiting butlersports.com/buy tickets.
I'll say this, with Notre Dame and Indiana meeting, again, that's coming up on the 20th. That's a Friday, 8 o'clock. It's going to be on ESPN and ABC. I mean, there's a chance, especially KB, if this is a close game, this might be your best rated game.
Because, again, that one does not go up against the NFL. All the Saturday games will go up against
It's the first game. It's super interesting. I think people like the Indiana story. You know that Notre Dame is full of haters. Like, everyone hates Notre Dame, so they want to see them lose as well. So, again, December 20th, that's a Friday, 8 o'clock, ABC and ESPN. Kirk Cignetti yesterday, he made the media rounds. One place he went was CBS, and they asked him about preparing. How is this different if you're going to prepare now for the playoff?
It's a piece of cake. I'm used to being in the playoffs, used to advancing in the playoffs. We're going to stay true to the process. Next week it's like you have an open week, and then you're in game week. So, you got to win to move on.
Piece of cake. The words, the quote from Kirk Cignetti.
He is one of a kind.
He really is.
He was ranting and raving Saturday night about them getting a home game there for a while.
We got to get to that in the 9 o'clock hour.
Lose to Ohio State, and Ohio State's the team that got the last home game.
He was wrong. Anyway.
All right, coming up, I guess it'll be a week off for the Pacers here. Nothing until Friday. I thought one of their worst losses of the season, and I would probably vote the worst loss yesterday to the Hornets, who are on a back-to-back, who aren't good at basketball, who are missing their best player, and you lost because of effort, according to Rick Carlisle. Post-game, not happy with the rebounding at all. T.J. McConnell had 30 points, and that was it in terms of Pacers. They really showed up. I guess a couple other bench guys you could put into that category. 10-15 on the year. They follow up probably their best offensive performance of the year in Chicago on Friday night with that one. It is quite a look in the mirror moment for the Pacers. I've said that way too often here in the first month and a half of the season. Again, no games till Friday, just 2 games in the next 11 days. So we'll see how Rick Carlisle is with us coming up tomorrow at 8 a.m.
There was go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying we're getting dangerously close to having to do that 5-minute Enya powwow.
No, we're going to have to do it this week, Wednesday.
100%.
I think we should do it Wednesday. There was a play late in the game. It was kind of a loose ball play, and I think it was Cody Martin who got it, and he ended up laying it in. And the camera scanned to Tyrese Halliburton, who just put his hands on his head. Like, it's happened again. Like, we've been there in the final couple minutes, and it's happened again. I mean, that's the other side of it. They've been in these games, and they've lost the last half of the fourth quarter in many of these games.
Well, and I would argue, and of the 15 losses, I might say half the losses, the other team has missed their best player or 2. Whereas the Pacers have had healthy Halliburton.
I know.
Healthy Siakam.
I know.
Healthy Matherin. Turner's missed, 1 or 2?
Yeah.
I mean, this is another one. You lost the Raptors without Scotty Barnes. You lost the Magic without Paulo Banchero. You lost the Sixers earlier in the year
Nembhard
without all those guys.
Nembhard played 31 minutes last night. That's not even an excuse. So, 113-109, that's your final with the Pacers. Quickly, Purdue 83-78 yesterday over Maryland. Pretty good game. Nice second half from Purdue. They're just going to be in these dogfights in the Big Ten night in,
Braden
night
Smith
out.
was an All-American.
He was fantastic last night. And then week 14 of the NFL season concludes tonight. Cowboys and Bengals. You have the Simpsons?
Oh, yeah.
Alternate broadcast if you want to watch that.
And the Manning cast.
I know you guys were up against it. Anything stand up? Chiefs over the Chargers late last night. The Bills lost by 2 on the road to the Rams. The Steelers won again. The Eagles wrapped up a playoff spot yesterday.
I mean, Bills-Rams, arguably game of the year. Just in 12 touchdowns in that game. Josh Allen, absolutely incredible. Again, last night, the Chiefs, they've won 15 straight one-possession games. 15 straight. Well, and it was the most inevitable movie you've ever watched. I stayed up and watched the whole thing. I'm like, why am I doing this? I know how it's going to end.
Did you really?
How
Wow.
will Mahomes convert the final third down? That was the only question I had on the final drive. Well, sure enough, Derwin James, he's humming down right in Mahomes' face. Looks like he's got him wrapped up.
Yep.
He's going to make a huge play. The Chargers are going to get the ball back. Mahomes one pump fake, throws it to Kelsey. They milk the rest of the clock. Their ninth-string field goal kicker kicks some bullet off the left upright that bounces off the left upright and goes in.
I know. It's sickening.
It's just amazing, too. They had 5 minutes left in the game, and they just ran it completely down to 1 second.
The whole thing. Harbaugh's burning timeouts. They convert a little, 3rd and 1. They convert it by half yard, et cetera, et cetera. They are absolutely inevitable.
No, they're as close as we've had just a perfect football team. I feel like they could win close games, blowouts, quarterback needs to play great.
Not perfect
defense.
until the final 5 minutes,
I know.
and then they don't
and then
make
they're perfect.
one mistake in the final 5 minutes
a big deal.
of every game.
Yeah, so 19-17. Again, it's Cowboys and Bengals. Feel the power on that one for Monday Night Football. Coming up on the other side, an early look at the Notre Dame side of the college football matchup with the Hoosiers. Pete Samson, he joins us next here on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, we talked a little Barry Odum hire with Tom Dienhart from Gold and Black earlier in the show. We'll get the IU side of their matchup coming up a week from Friday with Zach Osterman from the Indianapolis Star. Join us at 9 o'clock, I should say. But right now, we head to South Bend. The DePaul grad, Pete Samson, who covers Notre Dame for The Athletic, joins us here on this Monday morning. Pete, good morning to you. How are you?
Good. How's it going, guys?
We are great. Your level of surprise that the secondary ticket market looks like going to 3 straight Taylor Swift shows for Notre Dame and Indiana compared to the other 3 first-round matchups.
Well, as somebody who bought Taylor Swift tickets in Indianapolis for my daughter, I would say this isn't even close to that. But that's good for everybody else. So, yeah, I am shocked, living in South Bend as long as I have, how many IU football fans I knew that I didn't know they were IU football fans. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a great environment on the 20th. And I would not be surprised if there was a decent chunk of red in that stadium.
We talked to you preseason, and you mentioned there, and you wrote a great piece on The Athletic about it. Notre Dame as a university has planned for this. Could you kind of explain, like, academically what they did for this year's school calendar to look ahead to a home game coming up a week from Friday?
Yeah, I mean, they moved sort of the dorm close date a day to Saturday, to accommodate this. They've adjusted, the final schedule to accommodate for this. And, like, at a place that is academics as Notre Dame is, like, it's not a nothing thing to do. So, yeah, and I think that it's just been baked into the expectations for the season that not only would Notre Dame make the playoffs, but they'd host in the playoffs. So from Notre Dame's point of view, this is sort of like the minimum level of achievement for the season to be considered a success. It's just hosting a game. Then you got to win it, I think, to really put your stamp on it. But, yeah, the fact that Notre Dame is hosting, this has been sort of baked into the season for a long, long time.
Pete Samson joining us. We're talking the Notre Dame side of their matchup with Indiana coming up on the 20th of December. He joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. What do you like about the matchup as it pertains to the Notre Dame side? Where do they have the advantage?
I mean, I think they're probably as much like Ohio State as anybody Indiana has played. Defensively at all 3 levels, they're very high end. Even with some of the injuries that they've had. So I think that's a big matchup advantage for Notre Dame. I have a difficult time seeing IU moving the ball a whole lot on them, especially the way Notre Dame's defensive line is built. They should get their All-American defensive tackle, Howard Cross, back. It's Notre Dame recruits at a level and IU recruits at a level, and those are different levels for football. I think what Cignetti has done is incredible, but from a roster 1 through 85 point of view, I think Notre Dame should have a decent number of matchups that work in their favor. I don't know if they'll be able to score a ton of points on IU. I think the defense is really good, but I do think Notre Dame defensively is going to cause a lot of problems for IU.
He's Pete Samson, covers the Notre Dame Fighting Irish for The Athletic. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Pete, the biggest Notre Dame question a week from Friday, is it their kicker, Riley Leonard winning a game with his right arm in the fourth quarter, or the health of Jeremiah Love?
I mean, the biggest one is probably their kicker, Mitch Jeter, he tweaked his groin at the end of September or early October, and just has not been right ever since. So I think Notre Dame, if this gets down to a close game, Notre Dame is not going to have a lot of confidence in their kicker to go out and win it. Riley Leonard, if they're down big and he has to throw them back into the game, I think that's ultimately what will get Notre Dame at some point in the postseason. I don't know if it will be next Friday. And Jeremiah Love should play. My sources told me he had an MCL sprain. He was sort of at 80% immediately the day after, just sore. So I don't think that will be a concern, but kicker is a major problem for Notre Dame right now. And then Riley Leonard, the passer, it's like if you're on schedule offensively, that shouldn't be an issue. But the kicker part, man, they're in a bad spot right now at that place kicker position.
Pete, I'm just wondering, Notre Dame, we've been talking about this, and Kevin's a huge Notre Dame fan, obviously. We've been talking about this, that, Notre Dame in this 12-team system, the way it is at least right now, they're not going to be getting that first round bye, but they're going to be able to host, and they do have some respect in that room, obviously, does Notre Dame. The format, the 12-team format, is, going forward, is it a good thing for Notre Dame? Do you like how they fit into the college football playoff?
I do, because I think that, like, if they're good, like this year they were good, maybe you go up to a 6 or a 5 seed. You just sort of look at the draw that Penn State and Texas have, not only about who they play to start, but who they play in the quarterfinals. I mean, that's a pretty good situation if I'm Notre Dame. They were one line away from having a draw of SMU followed by Arizona State or Boise State. Like that, they have a good path the way it's set up right now. I don't know how long it's going to be set up this way, with conference champions sort of getting the preferential seeding. But I think Notre Dame feels good about it. Like everybody gave up something to do this,
right?
And I mean, you look at Georgia. They won the SEC, which is congratulations to them. But you lose potentially a starting quarterback for who knows how long after that. Like that's a real penalty for Georgia that Notre Dame didn't even have to think about paying because they were off last weekend. So I think overall Notre Dame, the format works pretty well for them.
His coverage is outstanding. I consume it probably way too much for the health of my marriage or my fatherhood, but nonetheless, he keeps me somewhat sane as a Notre Dame fan. He is Pete Samson from The Athletic. Pete, as always, man, thank you, sir.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.
Pete Samson right there on the Payless Stickers hotline. We'll get the IU side of it coming up at 9:30. Again, those questions I did throw to Pete, those are real. I mean, they have a major kicking issue. Like they haven't made a field goal in weeks. And we're talking, I mean, they missed a 27-yard field goal.
They're going to be doing the Dan Campbell. Just go for it.
USC,
might as well.
And then the health of Jeremiah Love. I think he's one of the most explosive players. I think he's arguably the most explosive player in college football, not named Hunter Genty, really. He's got that type of talent. He injured his knee against USC, did not return to that game. His health, massive.
Mark, did you notice the two things that Pete Samson threw in there? Number one, there's a bunch of Indiana fans now in the area that I had no idea existed. And then he said, Notre Dame, they recruit at one level. Indiana recruits at another.
Kevin
I like
was
that.
nodding.
I like that from Pete Samson. That's what I'm talking about.
Some would say poke the bear. Some would say he's also not wrong.
Yes. I think both could be true, actually.
I feel like
in
Kevin
that case.
needed that interview.
He did. He did need it. Plus, Samson's got such a great voice anyway. Much better than ours. Let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, the good and bad from the weekend. Our goats of the weekend. We'll do it next. It's a Monday on the Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, we just got the Notre Dame side of things. Pete Samson from The Athletic, Zach Osterman will join us in 15. A little IU version of it. I would push back a little bit with Pete. He acted like IU would have some major issues moving the football against Notre Dame. I'm not maybe as sold on that comment. Sounds good if I'm a Notre Dame fan, but I mean, the injuries are piling up for Notre Dame defensively, and I really, really respect IU offensively. I think it's the most balanced offense Notre Dame will have seen all season.
This is right now it's moved down. It opened up as a 53.5 over-under, and it's been bet down into the 51-52 range. I would take the under in Indiana Notre Dame. That's how I would feel, right?
You assume a little inclement weather potentially?
I guess I'm with Pete that I think this is more of a running the football, game possession. I'm not accounting for Indiana to have the turnovers and to, give up a kickoff, punt, return, whatever it was, like they did against Ohio State, dropping the ball on a punt, setting up an easy touchdown there. So if those things don't happen and you just have a tough, rugged game, right, in cold weather, I don't know. I could totally see this one being a 23-13 type of game.
I have a confession to share with you guys here in a few minutes. One thing to note, Colts-wise, they'll get back to their normal schedule coming out of the bye week, so Shane Steichen will meet the media later today. The health of Josh Downs. I would start there in terms of kind of Week 15 headlines. The Broncos have opened up as a 4.5-point favorite over the Colts. Denver also coming out of a bye week. They've got a big injury at corner. Riley Moss, if you watched them Monday night against the Browns, Jameis and Jerry Jeudy torched him. And they picked a lot on the other corner, not named Patrick Surtain. So those injuries coincide, of course. Josh Downs with where Denver's at from a corner depth standpoint here. But game of the year, Week 15 for the Colts. That is a 425, first 425 game of the year for the Colts coming up on Sunday in Denver. Early weather looks to be fairly fine, not too inclement at all.
I'm even forgetting now who's else has been on that injury report. Ryan Kelly, and there any other names we need to watch?
Braden Smith,
a couple offensive linemen
will be something. But yeah, Ryan Kelly could come back from injured reserve. Sound like Shane Steichen was optimistic about that. And then anybody on defense, Juju Brents, Jalen Carlies, any of those guys, could they be late season returnees for the Colts?
How real do you think the Juju Brents? You've mentioned that a couple times. Is that something they have a little bit of confidence in?
Right. I'm not expecting anything imminent by any means, but
gotcha.
I mean, these are guys that were put on injured reserve. The thought was they could return. Well, it's about to be mid-December.
Yeah, I know. We're at the end.
That 21-day window, it starts to tick a little bit here, so we'll see. Juju Brents has been out at practice doing some stuff off to the side, so we'll see if his return happens at all.
All right, we do it every Monday. Goats of the weekend, the good and bad that was. Let's go.
Who is the GOAT?
I told you all that I was the greatest of all time.
Jordan, here's Michael at the foul line. A shot on Elo. Good!
That's what I'm talking about. That's why he's MVP. That's why he's the GOAT. The GOAT.
Or GOAT?
This guy sucks.
Of the week.
Well, usually we base it off of a Colts win or loss, if we'll start good or bad. Every team wins on the bye week, so let's go with our good GOATs. Mark Dykton, you want to lead us off here?
My good is if your name is Juan Soto this morning. That boy got 15 years, $765 million from the New York Mets. And I'm glad it's not the Dodgers. Thank God. I think all of baseball is happy it's not the Dodgers. I knew it wasn't going to be my Cubs, so I just wrote them off immediately. But if your name is Juan Soto, you're having a pretty nice day, especially if you're looking at your bank account, because you are set for multiple generations for life to just swing a ball and catch a ball.
The per year it starts at 51 mil per year.
I saw the per at bat. I mean, that was it's just
it's stupid.
It was
dude.
like every
baseball contracts
good for him.
Just insane.
But it was perfect for Scott Boras. He had, the two big New York teams. He had a Boston team. He had the Dodgers flirting there. He had some other teams. I think Toronto probably came pretty strong with an offer as well. But he had the perfect owner in the Mets at the perfect time. It just everything lined up for Scott. Scott Boras really should be the GOAT of the weekend for all three of us.
So it says Juan Soto, as a member of the Mets, will make $97 per minute, $5,821 per hour, $139,726 per day.
Oh, man.
Almost $1 million per week, over $4.2 million a month, and $51 million per year.
You should buy every Notre Dame IU secondary ticket market.
Kevin would like some tickets if you're Juan Soto, if you're listening.
Thank you, Juan Soto. My
Good
great
for him.
goat of the weekend is what we're going to get a week from Friday. Like, Andy, for me as a sports fan, I do this because the experiences, the atmospheres, those moments that you just can't script, and I think in our state's history, a week from Friday will be one of those. Butler-Duke national title is a game I think about so often. It's just unbelievable sporting moment. And I get that, if we look at the fandoms of our respective teams we talk about here, Purdue got one last year in the national title game.
Yep.
And, Indiana obviously got to go back a ways, but they obviously have had it in college basketball. And the Pacers making, the run to the finals, and obviously the Colts in a couple Super Bowls. But this one is just so unique. And the first ever 12-team college football playoff is a standalone Friday night game in South Bend, Indiana, against the story of Kurt Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers.
Well, just think of all the things that had to happen. I mean, Tom Allen had to stink it up. They had to fire him, pay the money, pay all the money. I mean, the tens of millions, of dollars to fire him. He has to come in. Then they have to hire the right guy. He has to bring in a short amount of time, players. They had I'm sorry, Indiana fans know this, they had a favorable draw as well. Doesn't mean that some of those wins weren't impressive. And then all the other things that had to happen in college football, Alabama having to lose 3 games. What happened in the ACC?
Hey, you needed Georgia to beat Texas.
You needed Georgia to beat Texas. And then Notre Dame, all the stuff, that they've had to do the last couple of years. You go out, you get Riley Leonard. He ends up being the right guy.
In mid-September, after Notre Dame loses to Northern Illinois, Indiana's 1-0? And if I would have told you, hey, Notre Dame's going to host Indiana in the college football playoff game on December 20th at 8 o'clock on ESPN, and ticket prices are going to be 3 times the amount they are to go to any of those other first-round playoff games. But, that's what we love about sports.
It's exactly right.
The unscripted nature, and that our kind of bubble here gets to have that and all eyes on it.
It's pretty good, man.
That's why we love doing this so much.
It doesn't get much better. All right, my good of the weekend. I thought about it, KB. I thought, wow, maybe the college football season. What a season it was, okay? Then I moved that aside. There was a guy who went nameless, and I don't know why he wants to be nameless. He bet $3 million on the money line yesterday, Kevin Bowen, for the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Carolina Panthers. Did you follow this story at all?
No.
Okay.
Tell me more.
So the spread ended at right around a little under 2 touchdowns. So the money on that side, obviously, it was minus probably 300-400, whatever it was. He bet $3 million to win a little bit less than $500,000. We've all done this bet. It's the safest bet.
Was this Juan Soto?
Well, of course, he got into the third quarter, and the Carolina Panthers in the late thend quarter actually led the Philadelphia Eagles.
They led into the fourth.
And then, I don't know if you saw it, but Bryce Young, who's got a lot better, had a very nice throw to Xavier Legette. And Legette scored a touchdown, but he let it hit the ground. If that play is just an inch different, who knows what happens? But my man survived. He won his $400,000 or $500,000, but he had to sweat his ass off for about 3.5 hours on Sunday afternoon.
I'm guessing if you have $3 million to burn, you're not really sweating too much.
Could be.
Mark Dykton, your negative goats, lowercase goats.
This NFL slate this weekend stunk to high heaven. I had a long Saturday night, but my patience was low. And I was like, okay, let's see what these games have. I took a nap in the first 1 o'clock slate. Woke up, the 4 o'clock slate wasn't that much better outside of Bills and Rams. It was not great. I didn't love it. I didn't like it. I'm just glad all the bye weeks are over. I don't think it's going to get much better tonight because you have Bengals-Cowboys, unless you're really into the Simpsons mashup they're doing on Disney+.
Oh, I forgot it's Simpsons night.
Week 14 kind of sucked.
Yeah, it did. He's
Boys,
right.
I have a confession.
All right, go ahead.
I feel like I cheated on you guys.
Okay.
I was afraid to tell you. I didn't know that this is what we were doing on Friday night until we got to about Wednesday during the week, and I was too nervous to tell you guys.
Okay.
First off, let's start with the good. Shout out to listener Chris. Chris, I met at Goodfellas, the bar in Goodfellas right here on Mass Ave. I don't know if you've ever been back there.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
it's a great
about.
Spot.
Yeah.
I met him there, in there Friday night. He listens daily from Northern California.
God bless you.
He was in town to celebrate his mom's surprise 80th birthday. Chris and Brad out there at the bar. Told me he was Carson Steele's first Little League coach.
Okay.
So throw it back to Carson Steele. We talked about in the opening hour. So I love that. And why was I in the Goodfellas bar? on Friday night to have a beer.
Oh, boy.
Addie Bowen bought tickets to Blippi.
Oh.
We went to freaking Blippi at Old National Center. If there's anybody in your car right now that has no idea what Blippi is, be grateful. Be thankful. I needed every piece of liquor that was in that Goodfellas bar to get me through Blippi. We sat 40th row at Old National Center. I felt messy. I felt awkward. I felt weird. I couldn't get out of there quick enough. And the whole time I thought to myself, I'm cheating on Mark and Andy from when Blippi appeared at the Indians game back this summer.
I remember.
And I cannot believe how long the lines were to see Blippi.
You were that guy.
I'm ashamed.
So you didn't find out till almost at the end of the week, though?
No.
Oh, boy.
What a tease that is.
Did not know that.
No getting away from that.
Yeah, I bought them a couple weeks ago. I don't know. They were decent prices. I'm like, oh, my gosh.
So she sat with him in her Apple Wallet for weeks.
Oh.
That's the worst part.
How was the show? Sounds like it was a rave review.
It's just creepy as hell. I mean, it's just...
Was it 90 minutes, 2 hours?
Well, hang on. Besides cheering against Notre Dame and having the Blippi tickets that she didn't tell you about for a couple weeks... There's something I don't like it. I don't like those two things. I just don't like it.
And the kids were well behaved and they were entertained. At the end of the day, I mean, I probably should just say that's all we're looking for.
That's all that matters.
But I'll tell you what, boys, I felt like I had germs just all over me. I just felt dirty.
I'm glad my kids haven't fallen into the Blippi train.
All right, so
we've avoided that
I
somehow.
like Mika, but man, Blippi in that hat, I can't do it.
All right, so here's my bad. So on Saturday, all these games are going on. Saturday afternoon, guys, ESPN, they go to the College Football Playoff Committee, who is watching all the games. Did you see this?
Yeah,
Did you see this?
Shot.
I even tweeted about this. Mark, if you haven't seen this, it's fantastic. And so they're all sitting there. And they're in like a hotel ballroom. And they have one 55-inch TV, and then they have 3 other TVs that look like the 32-inch Black Friday specials that people used to go to Best Buy and punch each other in the face to buy. There's no food. There's no pizza. There's no booze. There's nothing. No one's smoking a cigarette outside.
Thankfully,
what are they doing? That's not how you watch football.
Thankfully, there was booze at Blippi, but it was very expensive.
That's not how Americans watch football, okay? You gotta consume something so you know if a team's good or bad. I mean, they can't have a beer. They can't have pizza. I mean, there's nothing. There was a bunch of old people watching football. It's the most sterile environment to watch football. And I guess the committee got it right, but shame on them. Shame on all of us.
I'm looking at that now. That's a pretty weak setup they got going.
Do they have like 232, like watching the ACC championship on a 32-inch TV that someone got punched at on Black Friday at Target?
What, Ward Manuel ripping shots in the back of the room here?
Yeah.
He's not going to make it to the 56-yard field goal at the buzzer.
They get blasted. Alabama makes the field, and SMU doesn't. That's what. If they were normally watching that, that's exactly what would have happened.
We had no committee gripes, did we not?
No. There's no drama. To me, I know we'll get to it. That's one of the storylines. There wasn't really much drama. I think we got to Sunday. I was like, SMU's going to end up making it. So we shall see. The Indiana side of the football game coming up on Friday, plus a little basketball as well. Zach Osterman, he joins us next.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
9 o'clock hour. And I'd say probably one of the more heavier college football-centric Mondays we've had in quite a while. That's what happens when Notre Dame and Indiana are matching up here in round one. We'll talk with Zach Osterman from the Star about IU's side of things here coming up in a few minutes. Reminder, 24 hours from now, Barry Odum will be announced inside of Mackey Arena as the new head football coach at Purdue. Do you remember Odom's name at all? Affiliated with the Indiana search last year?
I don't know.
Because he'd only done the 1 year at UNLV. It seemed like kind of momentum for him was building a little bit more after the second year. Just a reminder, if UNLV would have beat Boise State on Friday night, they would have been in the playoff. So Barry Odum, got UNLV to heights as a program they have never sniffed.
Yeah, when he got hired, I'm searching, and ultimately we'll find out if Barry Odum is a good hire, a bad hire, if he's just an average hire. I did see there were a pretty good legion of West Virginia fans that actually wanted Barry Odom there to be a Mountaineer. I hadn't really followed their search at all after they fired Neil Brown. And then, quite frankly, North Carolina, they talked to Belichick, and I still thought they were going to get the Tulane coach, John Sumrall, but that's not the case as well. Like, I have no idea who these other teams are going to go after, KB.
This could have been just me falling for whatever Twitter rumors. Did I really see Rich Rod momentum building to go back to West Virginia?
Yeah, that's fun. Have fun with that. I can understand it. Scott Frost went back to Central Florida. That happened this weekend. So,
think about the voice of McAfee.
Is that who McAfee wants?
Listen, wasn't that his coach?
McAfee put on for Neil Brown. Neil Brown just got fired, so, we shall see. I guess it was. So Rich Rodriguez, and then the other thing is, like, I don't know. Could North Carolina actually hire Bill Belichick? Like, I don't think so. But the conversation is that the two have continued to have conversations. Well, at this point, Belichick seemingly wants back in the game so bad that if you offered him a nice chunk of change, and I don't know what Mac Brown was making, but I'm sure as hell, I know it's over $5 million. I don't know. You offer Bill Belichick $6.5 million. Does that get him to come back? I guess I'm kind of asking the question. I don't know the answer, but, there's been a flirtation there. If they end up going to Tyson Helton, their fans are going to say, okay, you interviewed Bill Belichick and continued those conversations for more than a week, and then we got the Western Kentucky head coach. How does that happen? Does that make sense? Like, how do you end up with Tyson Helton if there's this weird flirtation with Bill Belichick, the greatest coach or one of them of all time?
Yeah, I don't know. To me, I think I'd rather have Tyson Helton than Belichick. And
don't say that.
Coach in waiting is Steve Belichick
with the mullet.
Those are like the rumors.
Well, I could see that being the case.
You think Bill Belichick's going to walk in there and be some successful college football coach?
Well, is he going to lose to Dave Clawson in a North Carolina Wake Forest matchup at noon on the ACC network?
Can you imagine him showing up to Charlotte High's Jamboree?
I just think it's weird how they've had this flirtation for a week, and it reminds me of Belichick and the Atlanta Falcons. Remember, it's like, we've talked with Belichick. Well, we keep talking to Belichick, and then they hired Raheem Morris. Of course, North Carolina's not hiring Belichick.
Just a reminder, Barry Odum was at UNLV, and they had all of the quarterback NIL quitting the team drama that happened. Correct me if I'm wrong on how that played out. It was like their OC promised him the money, right?
It was a guy on staff. I don't know if it was the OC, but it was someone on staff promised him, and the UNLV football boosters and everyone else was like, yeah, we don't know about this offer that apparently this kid thinks he has. And what was that week? That was week 3. So the kid played, Sluka was his name. They were 3-0. They beat Houston, Utah Tech. Sounds like IU basketball's non-conference schedule. And then they played Kansas. And they beat Kansas 23-20, and that's when all the rumors came out. And then they had a bye that week. They had an early bye, did
they
UNLV.
Lost to Syracuse, right? But then they won.
But they beat Fresno, then they lost to Syracuse, and they lost to Boise, obviously, 2 times this season. But, they changed quarterbacks basically on their bye week between week 3 and week 5.
Again, hoping to have Barry Odum maybe tomorrow to end the show. If not, probably on Wednesday. All right, let's head down to Bloomington. Again, this matchup a week from Friday. From the Indianapolis Star, Zach Osterman joins us. Zach, good morning to you. How are you?
Hey, Hey, sorry, I'm a little sick, so if I sound nasally or tired, it's only because I am.
Well, welcome to all of us here in studio. You sound great to us, so we appreciate the time. We won't keep you too long. From an IU side of it, I actually want to start here because I think it's like a big storyline in the first, 24 hours after this announcement. Ticket-wise, do you know the exact number Indiana got based off the college football playoff criteria for what visiting teams get for these first-round games?
Yeah, I think it's in the 3,000 range, like 3,000, 3,500. It's not much. I mean, it's not. I think it's a pretty similar allotment to like just generally what you spread out for a road game, where the road team will get a few tickets to sell to fans, but for the most part, if you want to get in, you have to go on the secondhand marketplace or know somebody or something like that. It's like in basically every way, including ticketing. My understanding is this is pretty much a true road game.
Zach Osterman with us. What's at stake for Indiana next Friday? This is house money? If they go up there and lose, it's Indiana football. They still had a great season. Is there a tinge to it if they go and they lose by, maybe 2 touchdowns, that the 2 big data points they had, Notre Dame and Ohio State, they end up losing by quite a few points? Which one is it as we get closer to this game, do you think?
I don't think. I mean, this is the first double-digit win season in Indiana history. Obviously, I know it wasn't a vintage Michigan team, but they beat Michigan. It's only I think the 3rd time maybe this century they've won both the spittoon and the bucket in the same season. I don't think there's any world where, from sort of an external perspective, Indiana's not already playing with house money in terms of, what it could mean to this season. I don't think anybody at Indiana is going to care if, let's say, they lose this game by 14 points and everyone, there's some sort of SEC-driven narrative that says, we told you. Indiana's not going to care. But having said that, I mean, like, Kurt Cignetti has been pretty firm for a few weeks now. I mean, and this goes back to even before Indiana was in the playoff, and Indiana was, just like comfortably a bowl team, when Indiana was rolling up to 8 wins, 9 wins, et cetera. He has said many times, this group's not satisfied. It's not remotely satisfied. And I think that it is a group that has embraced, kind of the idea that if this is the level you're going to reach, if you're going to win 11 games, if you're going to go to the playoff, then you don't just sort of say, that's good enough, let's roll with that and call it a season. I think this group, I think that the whole sort of like, we're not satisfied message, I think really does resonate with this group of players and coaches from Cignetti on down.
He is Zach Osterman. He sounds great for being under the weather here on this Monday morning. He's with us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Zach, it seems like Kurt Cignetti's biggest takeaway from the Ohio State game, or overall worry, is crowd noise. I feel like he comes back to that point so often. I could be wrong. I don't think it's going to be some menacing, home crowd that Notre Dame has a week from Friday. I think there will be a decent amount of Indiana fans, and frankly, I just think Notre Dame fans are not very menacing. So let's put that to the side. What non-crowd noise worry would Indiana have outside of that from the Ohio State game? I guess, what is your biggest question mark, maybe team-wise, not related to the crowd?
Well, so I should stay on the crowd noise for a minute, because I think it is relevant, which is the reason Cignetti felt like that was an issue for Indiana was because Indiana couldn't keep its snap count offensively without going to a silent count, which, people probably know what that means. It means you stop saying the count out loud. You have a silent signal that lets the center know when the quarterback's ready to snap the ball. And the problem was Indiana had to shift to the silent count. They never used it in the game before. Ohio State figured out what the signal was. And so Ohio State was timing up all of its blitzes and all of its pass rush based on its recognition of what Indiana's silent count, what its timing was and what the signal was for the silent count. So when Cignetti talks about the crowd noise, he's talking about something very directly functional that basically is a lot of what kept Indiana's offense kind of in reverse in that game. And so, it's atmosphere. But I think probably, something similar in this game is just sort of, can you, when you're facing a defense, and Notre Dame is, a little bit of a different defense, I think, at least on paper, and you kind of look at their numbers and their personnel to what Michigan or Ohio State was able to do against Indiana. But Notre Dame is still a really, really good defense, one of the best in the country. And it's sort of a similar, I think, challenge in terms of when you've got a defense that can really sort of stress the most basic functions of your offense. It's timing, it's rhythm, it's, just quite literally how you call the play and snap the ball. I think what Cignetti wants to see is that Indiana really took the lessons of a tough day at Ohio State and can apply them in another difficult road environment. And Cignetti's pointed out this will be the only true road game Indiana plays in the playoff, whether it wins or loses. So you don't necessarily have to carry that forward, although obviously Georgia in the Sugar Bowl would probably be a fairly, Bulldog-heavy crowd as well. But I do think the sort of Ohio State crowd noise thing Cignetti's talked about is relevant here because it wasn't just about him feeling like his team was intimidated by the noise or the atmosphere got to them. It was like an actual sort of practical, functional issue they were having that really kept their offense kind of in neutral. I guess I had them in reverse. Now I have them in neutral. So maybe they're going forward. I don't know. But, it just kind of kept the offense quiet all game because the crowd noise was affecting the operation of the offense itself.
Yeah, Cignetti, he mentioned that probably 4 or 5 times last night. I heard him on different interviews. Zach Osterman with us from the Star on the Payless Liquors hotline. Last thing for me, Zach, there was a plea on Saturday night from Cignetti. He was sitting there in the Christmas tree at the house, and the fireplace was looking great there. I think it was ESPN. I can't remember which one, but no, it was CBS. And Cignetti made a plea that the Hoosiers should be hosting a first-round game. What do you make of that? Do you agree with Cignetti?
I mean, I think, listen, at some point you have to separate these teams. When you're in the playoff like you're operating at the highest level of the sport. At some point, you're going to run into teams that have a better record or better wins or a better resume or whatever. I understood Cignetti's point, and listen, every coach is going to fight their team's corner this time of year. That's just the nature of it. But I think, you can understand, I think, why Indiana's on the road for this
right
this game. And that's, listen, they weren't that far off. They were ranked, I think, 8th in the final playoff rankings. So if there had been 2 more, let's say, I don't say more normal year, but in a year when there was a more robust conference champion out of the ACC and maybe the Big 12, they'd be hosting. They'd be the last host because they wouldn't be getting jumped by teams that are ranked below them but get automatic buys. And obviously there's, as you'd expect, especially because the SEC is throwing a fit, there's already a debate about the merits of automatic buys. But one way or the other, they weren't that far off from hosting. If you look purely at their ranking, they were in that range. It was just that they were getting jumped by teams that got the auto bids and therefore the first-round buys. But you can also understand why a team that, did not beat a single team ranked in the final, CFP selection committee top 25, a team that had a fairly modest strength of schedule. You can understand why there's an extent to which maybe they're not going to get quite the same amount of credit that a Penn State gets or a Texas gets, or even an Ohio State gets because, you again, like I've said this to IU fans a lot in the last few weeks, like the climb is steepest at the top of the mountain. When you start trying to compare yourself to potentially the best teams in the country, suddenly some warts and some flaws are going to show up that wouldn't be there if you were just trying to compare yourself to other teams trying to go to the Belk Bowl. This is a different altitude that Indiana's playing at there.
Shout out to the Belk Bowl. Zach, hope you feel better. I'd say watch Kirk Cousins play football, but I don't think that's going to make you feel much better with your Falcons now.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I think another interception he just threw. Zach, as always, great stuff, man. I know it's a beyond busy time for you. Enjoy the game tonight inside of Assembly Hall.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hoosiers Gophers, 6:30 tonight, Indiana. Probably one of their easier home games you would have on paper, I would think, in the Big Ten slate. Minnesota's Dawson Garcia and a bunch of random dudes, and they're favored by like 10.
Oh, is Garcia still there?
He's still
It's great that you know that, because if he weren't there, I wouldn't know a player on Minnesota's basketball team.
Again, many angles to Indiana Notre Dame coming up on a week from Friday. You got the Pat Kuntz Bowl, the legend from Roncalli, the former Notre Dame defensive lineman. It's a shame he won't have any emotion. Coming up a week from Friday. That's a joke. These two teams, by the way, Andy, they've met one time since 58.
Okay.
91. They met. Right now, they're on the docket for 2030 and 2031. We got a home and home.
Now, is that okay? Is Alabama going to be okay scheduling those types of games going forward, given that that's what the committee told them?
There's no chance that those two games actually happen. Can you imagine college football in 2030 and 2031?
No. Who knows what's going to be happening in 2030 with college football? A couple different things I wanted to bring up. One is going back to the conversation that I asked Osterman about Cignetti. Let's play this sound, Mark. Cignetti Saturday night was on CBS, and he was doing Cignetti things, and that's why we like him. That's why we love him. And he made a passionate argument Indiana should have been hosting coming up on Friday.
Here's my question, right? There's 6 one-loss teams in the country, right? Okay. We lost to the second-ranked team on the road. Penn State lost to the 4th-ranked team at home. Texas lost to the 5th-ranked team at home. Boise lost to the 7th-ranked team. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. And SMU lost to an unranked team at the time they played. So how are we not right now seeded for a home game? That's what I want to know. We got the largest margin of victory in the country. Okay, take out the FCS and the G5, right? P4 only. We're outscoring people 40-17. Second in the country. So because our name is Indiana and not Michigan,
pretty much.
We're ninth.
That's one of those things.
Not pretty much.
I'm picturing
Not
him just
pretty
like,
much. Come on, CBS.
I'm picturing him just like pouring the old-fashioned, being like, okay, I've done these interviews for the last 3 weeks. What new material can I drum up here to, walk the walk there? I would strongly disagree with him.
Of course because he's not right. We love Cignetti. He's so wrong on this one. The strength of schedule did not keep Indiana out of the playoff, but it also does not mean that they should be hosting the first round of the playoff. I think that's fair.
And
right?
again, I think when you are parsing out, and to Zach Osterman's point, when you're separating quality teams, and obviously all these teams are of high quality, I think 11 games on a schedule matters more than one. So the one loss, it's a data point, but there's also 11 others that matter. And again, this is part of the nitpicking you get to at this point with these resumes. Indiana bought themselves out of a quality non-conference game.
Yes, they did.
That impacts you negatively when you are saying, are you hosting or not? I mean, you can boil it down right there. If Indiana would have won at Louisville in their non-conference, then I think Cignetti has a totally different argument. That game versus Western Illinois, now you could compare yourself. I mean, right there with Notre Dame, you have a like-minded opponent. Notre Dame played Louisville. Indiana played Louisville. Notre Dame and Indiana played Purdue, and they both scored 1 million against Purdue. So, those are little points where if you're splicing out who is 5 through 8 versus 9-10, yeah, but who's the last team to host? Ohio State. What did Ohio State do to Indiana?
Right.
So, to me, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's not much to add. On Sunday, I know his ESPN interview, Cignetti was like, yeah, we've kind of moved on. He's like, that was then. I was politicking for my team, but now I don't have to politic. We know who we're facing. We know what day. We know, where we're going to be playing these games. The only piece of whining and crying, KB, and there is something that is beautiful to it, is Alabama. The committee taking SMU over Alabama, it has left that the only thing we have in college athletics to whine about college football is Alabama, and nobody is here for the argument. Their AD, Greg Byrne, who's a very good AD, he went through boo-hooing on Twitter yesterday about, why they didn't make it and why other teams don't have the schedule that they have and all that nonsense. And I understand that, but what about an AD like Greg Byrne at Alabama? coming out at some point and saying, you know what, we need to be better. We didn't need to lose 3 games. They didn't need to lose to Vanderbilt, even though Vanderbilt is much better, or was better this season. We didn't need to lose to a terrible Oklahoma team. Instead, we're whining and crying about someone else's strength of schedule instead of the games actually won. And listen, I like this guy a good amount. I want to be clear. Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl, I'm sure did you guys ever had him on when you were doing the show with Jake?
Yeah, at the Combine.
I like Jim Nagy a good amount. He tweeted out today, as someone with access to college tape and staff of 11 former NFL scouts that log hundreds of hours evaluating the college football season, it's easy to see why SEC coaches are upset with the final playoff bracket. Based strictly off future NFL talent, Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss, he says you could even throw Florida, Texas A&M, and LSU, are easily all top 12 teams. SEC ADs now have no incentive for scheduling tough non-conference opponents moving forward.
What a horrific take.
Which is too bad for college fans. Alabama did not lose because of their non-conference schedule. They played 2 FCS schools.
If we're judging teams off of purely future professional talent, then St. Peter shouldn't have even been on the floor with Kentucky 4 years ago over Gainbridge.
Well, no, and I tweeted out, Chris Ballard then picks the top 12.
Seriously.
Who does Andy Reid think should represent the Big Ten in the college football playoff, right?
That is a horrific take. And I like Jim Nagy.
What does Matt Nagy think of? I was trying to think. Mark, I looked at you and I got scared.
You want me to run out of here?
What does Eberflus think of SMU's offensive line? Tell me.
Nothing says high and mighty Notre Dame thought more than this. The game a week from Friday will be your first non-NBC Notre Dame home game in 44 years.
Is it? Oh, it was? I thought it was 1990. Is it even further back?
1980, I believe.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you'll get, which I think is the best college football crew you're going to get Saturday night, or a week from Friday. I think Greg McElroy and Sean McDonough.
He's good, yeah.
And Molly McGrath. I think that's your best crew.
Yeah, I would agree. They're good.
I'm a little more pro them than Fowler Herb Street. So, all right, let's get to a busy morning checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. The Dogs take on North Dakota State at Hinkle Fieldhouse Tuesday, December 10th. Get your seats by visiting butlersports.com/buy tickets.
Does this mean we don't have any more Jason Garrett?
Hallelujah.
Jack Collinsworth.
Notre Dame and Indiana coming up next Friday, 8
Jack
o'clock.
with a C and Jason Garrett on the call.
I was blanking on his name, too. Good thing we played the Open there, Jason Garrett.
Now, there are some people griping about Penn State's resume compared to IU. Do you want to go there or no?
We can next segment. Okay. The committee's loved Penn State. They have adored Penn State. That is one of the big takeaways. Let's hear from Kirk Cignetti again. He was on ESPN last night. We've all mentioned the crowd noise. Indiana dealing with the crowd noise. Here's what Sig had to say.
Primarily, crowd noise would be the number one thing. And, we've been working on that really since that game. Practicing. We always practice with crowd noise, but we do it every practice right now. Last week we did it every practice and turn it up loud so that, we can operate offensively.
I get what Zach was saying a little bit, but man, he just keeps on bringing that up.
He brought it up 4 times last night. All 4 interviews that I watched, he brought it up every time.
So would offensive line be a non-crowd noise worry? I don't know. Maybe that plays right into it. But again, week from Friday coming up in South Bend, right around a touchdown favorite, the Irish. The rest of the first-round matchups, you'll get Clemson at Texas, you'll get SMU at Penn State, and you'll get Ohio State and Tennessee. Winner of Notre Dame, Indiana goes to the Sugar Bowl. That is Bourbon Street on New Year's Day, 8:45. Down there in New Orleans. All right, last night inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse, I would argue the worst loss of the season for the Indiana Pacers. They played a bad Hornets team without their best player in LaMelo Ball. They were on a back-to-back, and the Pacers lose, and rebounding was an effort issue, according to Rick Carlisle. Pacers head coach will join us tomorrow at 8 o'clock. It is a very quiet week for them on the floor. I would argue that is much, much needed. They'll play Friday against the Sixers, Sunday against the Pelicans, before then they head out west coming up late next week.
College basketball, Purdue winners 83-78 over Maryland yesterday. Braden Smith was fantastic. He played the entire game, KB. He had 24 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds, a couple steals. The All-American that he is, quite frankly. Trey Kaufman-Renn, pretty good as well. 21-8 on the win. As for tonight, the Hoosiers back at it. 10.5-point favorites over Minnesota. Minnesota just 6-4 on the season. That one 6:30 on the Big Ten Network.
I couldn't believe that Purdue had this stat that was the first 20-point, 10-assist double-double for a Purdue player since Troy Lewis.
Really?
Yeah, I guess I would have guessed like Carson Edwards.
I'm able to guess Braden Smith.
Well, yeah, that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Hummel had a big
I'm
assist
surprised
night,
by that.
like something like that. So I was surprised to see that. But Braden Smith was outstanding. Week 14, what stood out to you guys in the NFL? Bills, Rams, certainly the game of the day yesterday. Josh Allen, incredible, but not enough. 44-40. Again, if I'm in the NFC, I want no part of seeing Stafford and the Rams.
No. I tell you what.
No part of it.
I tell you what, just on like the bad side, the funny side. So obviously the Jags and the Titans are playing the Colts here in the final couple weeks of the season, and both teams could not have looked worse yesterday. Levis got injured. He looked terrible. They couldn't throw the ball. The Jags, I think, 31st in the league on pass defense. And then just everything involving Mac Jones is just a tough watch. So I know that was on the red zone some, but I had to watch a little bit of that one because the Colts are going to get those teams here coming up in the next few weeks, and they should hammer those teams.
I don't know who I felt worse for, people who attended Jaguars-Titans or who attended Saints-Giants yesterday.
Well, did you see they flew the banners over MetLife Stadium?
Mm-hmm.
Like, clean up this dumpster fire. Oh, yeah.
Well,
bags on the head, throwing the...
So you guys just mentioned 2 games that involve the Colts' final 3 opponents.
Yeah, exactly. All those teams have just given up.
Broncos
garbage.
coming out
so bad.
of a bye. We'll give you some Colts playoff thoughts here on the other side, exactly what it looks like heading into Week 15.
Yeah, a thought on the Colts, a thought on the college football playoff. We'll keep it going here. A couple more segments to go. Appreciate you waking up with us on this Monday on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Reminder to Purdue fans, Barry Odum, new head coach, will be introduced coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow morning. It sounds like open to the public inside of Mackey Arena, 9 o'clock, that press conference there. And we'll hope to have him on air at some point here coming up.
You know what the funniest press conference that I've been to, like the coach's press conference where you look back and you kind of laugh, you smile at it? I went to Billy Gillespie's press conference when he got hired as the Kentucky head coach. Remember him? Billy G?
Yeah, gosh,
remember him?
Where is he nowadays?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. He's somewhere having a bourbon. That's what I know. It might be 9:32 in the morning. He's somewhere drinking bourbon.
The Indiana fans are coming out and saying they agree with Kurt Cignetti on should have hosted compared to Penn State's resume. Thoughts?
Okay, what's their argument? I guess that would be mine.
Penn State benefits from brand. Indiana does not benefit from brand.
Okay. Oh well, yeah. Maybe a little bit. It's college football. What do you expect?
Well,
there's a part of it. It's college football.
Okay, let's do this. If you literally blind resume the two, and you put them side by side, what I think probably separates Penn State from Indiana in the hosting is this: Penn State has just got some wins that are a little better quality than Indiana. I think it's overwhelming.
Yeah,
but
they beat Illinois.
Illinois is a better win.
They beat USC at
USC and at Minnesota.
At Wisconsin.
Those are probably, I don't know, maybe besides Michigan, does Indiana have a win that's better than that? And then I know it's a little thing, but like the fact that they at least tried to schedule in the non-conference, like West Virginia was at least an attempt. Again, Indiana bought out their only good non-conference game. That is to me, when you're trying to decide who is hosting a first-round playoff game, I'm not calling it a cardinal sin, but you can't have a non-conference resume that Indiana had.
No.
That's what I think is splitting hairs when you're deciding who's hosting and who's not.
Listen, I think Indiana falls into this particular year. Like, there's two ways you can do this. You can have a difficult conference schedule and play somebody of note, if you will, or maybe even it's a difficult game in the non-con, and you give yourself a buffer that if you win those games or some of those games, those wins look great, and if you lose those games, it's kind of like the SEC thing. You're not going to be penalized as much. The other way of doing it, and this is how Alabama is whining and crying about it now, instead of Greg Byrne, their AD, being a leader, they decided to whine about it, is the flip side of that is you schedule nobody and you win all those games, and you're in a respected enough conference, which Indiana is in, that you're good to go. Those are the two ways you can go forward, and teams will go forward moving on. But I would say Indiana is exactly where they should be. I don't think they're being ripped off. I'm not angry about their draw. I'm not angry about them hosting. To me, you throw on top of it, Penn State lost by a touchdown to Ohio State. That's not the 2013 is not the way the game played out for Indiana when they went and played Ohio State. So, do I think Penn State has been overrated and there might be some brand stuff? I do, but I still would not have Indiana hosting over them.
What was that crowd split inside of Lucas Oil for the Big Ten title?
I think it was about 65-35 Penn State. About that, 60-40 Penn State.
And would you
nice
say
amount.
Like a mostly like two fan base split, or were there a lot of you in there?
I think there were some of me, but no, there were a lot of green shirts. There were guys in front of us, a row of a bunch of college dudes actually from Eugene next to us. I don't know, they were super drunk. I don't know if they're from Oregon. Big Oregon fans. I saw a LaMichael James jersey, which I like.
Wow,
you
there's
like
a
that?
throwback. Gosh, he was a great college
He was
player.
a really good college player at that. So we got text this. Did you want to hit on this? Our guy J-Law tweeted us and said that James Franklin threw shade at Lucas Oil.
Really?
In the post game? I've been trying to find audio of that. If anyone has that, I'd love to hear it.
Well,
I did not see that, obviously.
I've never been the
after
biggest
game.
James Franklin guy, so I'll happily just add to that fuel.
I'm seeing here, Penn State's James Franklin angry as Oregon Ducks ban interrupts press conference after the Big Ten title. That's the first thing that comes up.
I'm like trying to picture.
That's fantastic.
So do you know who the visiting team was? Who the home team was?
Isn't the home team? Well, okay, so
What,
Purdue was in the white.
Was it Oregon?
Yeah.
So Oregon would have been in the Colts locker room.
But plus Oregon's on the stage.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the visiting,
getting the trophy.
That visiting media conference room is nowhere near the field.
Yeah.
I don't know. James Franklin.
He's 1-15 in these.
I'm not
going to
say he can kiss my ass like Brian Kelly, but
you're close to it.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest James Franklin guy at all.
He complained about the penalties. The penalties were lopsided.
His team gave up. How many points does his team give up?
Was it 45? I believe. That's the only thing that scared me a little bit.
Tyler Warren looks pretty good, though.
He looks pretty good. The only thing that scares me a little bit on Oregon is Oregon allowed a lot of points to an offense that hasn't, in Penn State, always scored a lot of points. So I think that worried me a little bit. But I'm not seeing anything about him taking a shot at Lucas Oil. So
the one thing I found
DM
here,
us if you can find
the one
anything.
thing I found here, and it's terrible audio quality, so it's not worth playing. It says his post-game presser got interrupted by the Oregon band playing their fight song outside. And his quote was, "I have no problem with them celebrating, but this is kind of a JV setup." Because you could hear the band in the press conference.
He's so unlikable.
Dude, shut the hell up.
Go Google.
I might hate him more than Brian Kelly.
See, there you
that
go.
Guy sucks.
Did you guys notice he went? I'm not going to tell him to kiss my ass, and now you want to say that. So
credit to the Oregon band, and what's their mascot's name? Puddles.
You know what? I feel like that's something that we should know, and I have no idea.
DeForest Buckner in the house.
But you got to be like shredded to be the Oregon Ducks. They do the.
Puddles is his nickname. Otherwise, he's just the duck.
They do the push-ups after every touchdown. So at the end of the game,
like
my man's doing 45 push-ups.
Again, couple thoughts Colts-wise. What helped or hurt them yesterday? Want to get to that, but a reminder, secondary ticket market here for opening round games. For those that have not seen this yet, our opening round games are Clemson, Texas, Tennessee, Ohio State, SMU, Penn State, IU, Notre Dame. The cheapest ticket on the secondary market, we looked this up earlier in the show, $152 to get into Happy Valley to watch Penn State SMU. $292 for Texas Clemson. That's a lot of orange. $319 at the Horseshoe for Ohio State Tennessee. And a reminder, those three stadiums are all very big.
Oh, yeah.
Much bigger than Notre Dame. Notre Dame, Indiana. Secondary ticket market. Cheapest ticket pre-fees. $951. So that is more than triple what you're looking at there for any of the other venues.
It's not even close. That's unbelievable. These games are going to look great on TV. Tennessee, Ohio State's going to be fantastic. I cannot wait for that game. That game's going to, it might be 23 to 16. That's the kind of game I think you're going to see. Let's take a break. One more segment to go. I have a question for you guys on the other side. So that's how I'll tease it. I have a sports question for the fellas.
I'm watching the Franklin clip. This is awesome. He is so pissed about this.
Is he upset?
This is great.
You want to play that on the other side? You think it'll play?
Yeah.
You think it's worth playing?
I hope it's going to come across on air. But his body language, his reaction. Oh, my gosh. This is beautiful.
All right, hear from a frustrated James Franklin. We'll do it next. It's a Monday on the Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Minor Rick Carlisle tomorrow at 8. Certainly a lot of questions for the Pacers head coach as they get into their quietest stretch of the season game-wise. Just 2 games in the next week and a half. And I would argue yesterday was their worst loss of the season and losing to the LaMelo Ball-less. I don't know if that sounded right. LaMelo Ball not playing for the Hornets.
What was the dad's name? LeVar Ball? Remember
LeVar.
Remember that? I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago we had that. I did see a tweet.
I feel like he's been kind of quiet.
Well,
lately.
it's interesting that you say that. I haven't heard from the guy in a long, long time. LeVar Ball, I somehow saw this on my Twitter account yesterday, was selling shoes like a Black Friday special. He was still peddling his shoes out there. I forgot all about that. I didn't know people ever, because I know a lot of people bought them, right? And then they never got them. Remember that? You had to wait like 6 months. It's like you're buying a Tesla or something. Instead, you're buying some crappy basketball shoes.
One thing I did want to note, Colts-wise, and again, we'll get a lot into this as the week moves along. It pretty much, if you win, you're north of a coin flip, maybe 55, 60% chance to make the playoffs. You still need a little help from Denver. If you lose, we should probably start looking at mock drafts here coming up on Sunday. I didn't think the Colts got as much help as maybe they would have liked, though, yesterday. And, again, Sunday is what really, really matters. Let me reiterate that a million times. But, Andy, it would have been nice if the Jets would have beat Miami. You could pretty much cross Miami off. They're still kind of lurking. They have the same record as the Colts, but the Colts have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So Miami coming back and winning that game in overtime, they are still alive. Now, again, they're with Indy. They're outside looking in. And then the Sunday night result, you could look at it 2 ways. The Chargers are now 2 games up on the Colts. If they totally bottom out, the Colts could jump them. But you need a lot of just falling on their face from Jim Harbaugh's team here to close out the season. I actually thought Kansas City winning last night hurt Indy because Kansas City now has a 2-game lead for the number 1 seed, with Buffalo losing to the Rams. And if Kansas City has that wrapped up by Week 18, that means they're going to rest against Denver Week 18. And Denver's the one that you need to lose.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're rooting against any team the rest of the season,
it's them.
It is Denver. And so now Denver's final 3 games, Chargers, Bengals, Chiefs. Well, I mean, what does Cincinnati look like here in a couple weeks? Are they still playing all their guys? And then, will Kansas City be playing any of their guys Week 18? That schedule could look a whole lot different than what it looks like on paper right now.
I know. You look at some of these other teams' schedules, and it's like, with the Colts, that you're facing 3 of the 4 teams you're facing barely have a pulse, or maybe not even have a pulse at this point. But we don't know what some of these teams around Denver's schedule, what they're going to do. I'm thinking, the Chiefs have done this before. Even if the Chiefs play Carson Wentz, I expect them to play well. Does that make sense? Like, some teams will just sit everybody and they'll take the blowout and they'll move on. I don't think that will be the Kansas City backups. For some reason, I think they could possibly keep that game close. But it's all about this week. Something I want to dive into tomorrow would be, what's at stake this week? What's really at stake this week when we talk about the future of Chris Ballard and we talk about the future of some of the guys on this team, some of the guys that are free agents. When you talk about just simply making the playoffs, what would that mean? There's a lot at stake this week, and it's really going to start the next month. I think is really going to show kind of what the future of this franchise may look like in the years to come.
All right, is the James Franklin audio worth playing?
Sure. I think it is. I think it's, yeah, I would say so.
Okay, just to set this up, post-game Lucas Oil Stadium on Saturday night, Oregon beats Penn State by 8. Penn State had chances late in that game. Drew Aller threw a big pick. And if anybody's been to the bowels of Lucas Oil Stadium, the setup down there is perfectly fine. News to James Franklin, Lucas Oil Stadium's hosted some pretty big events in its life. And they've also hosted some pretty big football games, i.e. the Super Bowl, i.e. the College Football National Championship game. I think they know what they're doing down there.
Yeah. Wait, who knows what they're doing more? The people who are running Lucas Oil for big events, or James Franklin, who's 1-15 in big games?
Thank you.
Yeah. Who knows more?
So this is James Franklin post-game. He's up at the podium with 2 of his players. The Oregon fight song is getting too loud. They need to pause the press conference, and James Franklin's not very happy.
That would be great. We can start right here in the front row.
How's this a smart setup?
Yeah.
This is for Drew.
Wait. We can hang tight for just a second. We'll try to get that audio turned down next door.
Oh, that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff.
I got no issue with them celebrating, but this is kind of a JV setup.
He go JV on us? He goes 6 o'clock on a Friday night with us?
He went JV. Okay, so I've been there for different setups. The setup is it in what room is it in? I know people aren't there down with us media gas bags.
I know, I'm trying to
How can you explain this to the listener?
I know, I'm like, should I draw out a map and should we tweet out a picture? So fans know where the Colts exit the field and where the visiting team exits the field, right?
Right.
Opposite ends of the stadium, but both on the same side. So if you would walk, let's picture the visiting team. If Penn State would walk probably, I'd say, a couple hundred feet from exiting the stadium, that is where their locker room is. And then if they walk another probably 50 to 100 feet and turn the corner.
And turn
we're
the
talking
corner.
big old walls.
I'm with you.
That are between this. That is where their press conference room is. And it is a room that has a door that shuts, and it's, picture just like a small classroom. Like every other visiting media room is in every single NFL stadium. And the Colts version is very similar. The Colts one might be a little bit longer down the hall, i.e. where Oregon would have been for their press conferences, but not much. I just credit the Oregon band. They're just loud.
That is a loud band.
And they brought it. If they had to travel 4 hours,
first year in the
well.
Big Ten. James Franklin is as unlikable as
he really
as
is.
anybody.
Who else? If we made a Mount Rushmore of unlikable college football head coaches, Brian Kelly, James Franklin, and who else?
Well, that's your Mount
Rushmore.
Well,
no, listen, he's right about Brian Kelly.
I think I speak for everybody.
Yeah,
Come on now.
No,
that's true.
It's Brian Kelly.
Who else? Who else are we putting on there?
Who else is? I mean, Lane.
We've got Jackson and Tim in studio watching. What do you got?
I like Lane Kiffin, but the last couple weeks he's acting like they went undefeated and got left out of the college football playoff. Like, bro, what are you doing right now?
But he's
lost
still
to Kentucky at home.
But I think he can be funny-ish.
Jason Hammer just texted us. He said Ryan Day.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, how did I miss that?
I don't know, man. There's like a part of me that feels bad for Ryan Day.
No, stop.
He's like, my dad died, but besides my dad dying, losing to Michigan. It's like, settle down, okay? He's got the painted-on beard. I don't know.
Well, there's 3 of the 4, and those egos might be so big, we might not have room for a 4th.
It used to
on
be
the Mount
a good guy like Bobby Petrino, but now he's just an offensive coordinator. You got one? Deion Sanders. Listen, here's why I'm not down on Deion. Deion's like, Travis Hunter and these guys were playing in the bowl game. I actually give them credit because they're going to be in the Weed Whacker Bowl, whatever bowl they're in.
And Deion's entertaining, and again, he can do it with a sense of humor. Like, these guys are just. I was about to say a word that Mark Dykton would have had to bleep out.
That's okay.
Oh, goodness.
But, like, we don't feel this way about, Dan Lanning or. Marcus Freeman or Kurt Cignetti. I'm trying to think of some of the other coaches that are still playing. I mean, Kirby Smart's fine.
I was going to say, Mark, do you have that Kirby Smart sound up? Did you see what Kirby Smart did this weekend?
Yeah, he took a shot at the SEC commissioner.
He took a shot at Sankey, and Sankey's standing next to him.
Yeah, this was good.
And the camera, you need to look it up on Twitter. The camera pans out, and Sankey looks pissed off. Like, Sankey is standing right next to Kirby Smart, and Kirby Smart is taking a shot at the SEC over their schedule. Go ahead.
Round bye, what does that mean to you?
I didn't hear you.
You get the first round bye. What does that mean for you?
Well, it means rest for a team that Greg Sankey and his staff sit on the road all year long. We get to take a little bit of break and get ready for college football playoff. This team needs some rest mentally.
It's a beautiful Southern accent all year long.
And you have to watch the video because the greatest is the pan out, and then Greg Sankey just staring into the abyss.
Just staring. Oh, it's fantastic.
Sankey looks great. Shout out to the great Greg Murray here. He chimes in. Dabo. Yep. Right there. There's our Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, here's the thing.
Dabo.
I'm pretty broken up that Dabo made it. I know Jake Query, our cohort here, at noon. I'm pretty broken up that SMU let him in. I didn't want that to happen. He's being proven right. He can run his football program the way he wants, and they make the college football playoff. He's being rewarded for his
Well, if we
nonsense.
did nothing else on this Monday morning, we've executed a Mount Rushmore of hate of college football coaches.
Who had the worst night last night into this morning? Hal Steinbrenner, the owner of the Yankees, or Kalen DeBoer, the Alabama head football coach? Can you imagine being the Alabama football coach and not making the playoff? And
I know, but you
SMU's
can't
in it,
get
and Boise
outbid.
State's
You
in it,
can't get
Indiana's in
outbid
it.
by the Subway team.
I know. You're right.
Especially when you're the Yankees.
Listen, I'm totally with you. It's not good. Both of those guys in much different parts of the country are having bad nights into a bad Monday morning.
Some of these numbers are unbelievable. The Pirates' payroll since 2015 is $757 million. Juan Soto's deal is $765.
Oh, Soto will make more than the opening day salary for the Marlins. He'll make more per year than the Marlins will pay their entire team.
It also
there's
means
a fair chance of that
We're
happening.
going to get $1 billion contract at some point. I mean, it's inevitable at this point, right? Like the next big superstar guy?
Easily. Just to remind everybody, Indiana will open up Big Ten play tonight. That's Minnesota. You can catch that on our sister station, WIBC. It's an earlier tip, 6:30. Big Ten Network on that end. Andy, it's one of the quieter weeks from a sporting event standpoint.
It really is.
Not a lot of college basketball. Again, the Pacers don't play till Friday. Notre Dame's got finals next week. How about that? Finals and a playoff game. Are they even going to be ready for Friday night?
You got to get.
Cignetti?
The teachers got to get the finals done by Thursday mid-afternoon. Come on,
Riley
Let's
Leonard
go.
taking
Come on.
Biochem's final here, and you guys are partying in the villas.
Yeah, he better not be. Come on. Someone help my man Riley Leonard out. He's got things to do. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Check out the Podcast Center, 1075thefan.com. Have a good